Well, good evening, patriots, freedom fighters throughout Saskatchewan, across the country, and around the world. How we all doing tonight? Hopefully, my sound is good. If you guys want to give me a thumbs up or a yes to confirm, that would be good. As you can see, I've rearranged my office. No longer am I using a green screen that ran through the middle of my office. This is much better, and I've upgraded as well my system, so we shouldn't have any problems sharing videos and doing all the good stuff we want to do. So we had a good day today. We had it's a little weird actually sitting live here like this. And I'm sure you guys will be distracted by everything I got going on behind me, but it's all good. We'll both get used to it. Yes, we had a good day today. We had a convoy for kids, hashtag convoy for kids, and it went off pretty well. As per normal, I would have liked more people, but it is what it is. I think somebody said 27 or 37. I didn't count, but it looked like quite a few in the convoy. And, we had people paying attention. We had people looking at us, wondering what we're doing, and hopefully looking at our signs. And one of the guys in the group, RB, walked into the Tim Hortons at one of the parking lots we stopped at, and ended up engaging with some of the folks there who were 100% supportive and are completely understanding of the fraud that is the PCR test. So that was encouraging. It's always nice to run into folks who appreciate what we're doing and are awake themselves. It gives us all hope. There's RB now. Hey, RB. Yeah, Canadian X-Tracker, love the Habs. Absolutely. It's actually not a pop can, it's a piggy bank. I've had that for a long time. I've been a Habs fan since I was 5 years old. So I'm not sure why you don't have sound, Trevor, but I think everybody else does. At least I hope everybody else does. So good day. As per normal, lots going on. Crazy times we're in. Yeah, it's but I think we're getting there. I'm seeing a lot of folks waking up, commenting, and I think out of frustration, and I think out of consequence. And we knew that was coming. I was talking to somebody the other day about that. I'm just looking up something here. There it is. I was talking to somebody about that the other day, and we knew this, right? Like, if you've watched my show for any amount of time, I've been saying it all along, even before COVID, that the measures that they're taking and the things that they need to do to achieve their goal and the goals of sustainable development, the sustainable development goals, and the Great Reset. Now, of course, it's inevitable that people will wake up. It's just a matter of, will enough wake up in time? That's really the issue. So they're waking up to COVID, and if they're waking up to COVID, they will then be more open to waking up to the greater reality, which is, of course, the globalist agenda. So one thing that I saw that was very encouraging, and I'm sure most of you saw it, I'm just going to show it again now, is the Liberty Coalition Canada. And this is a coalition that is set up by Randy Hillier, Maxime Bernier, and Derek Sloan. So there's Randy and Max and Derek. And now there's been some others join, which is really good to see. Councillor and Deputy Mayor from Centre Wellington, Ontario. Daryl Herlick, Township and Country Councillor in Perth East, Ontario. Paul Hinman, former LMLA, Calgary Glenmore. Dave Bilesma, Mayor, West Lincoln, Ontario. Jason Alderson, former Town Council, Rocky Mountain House, Alberta. Glenn Carrot, good friend of the show, good friend of mine, former councillor in Innisfail. He's actually running for mayor in Innisfail. So that's awesome. Glenn, for those of you who don't know, was a lead organizer of the convoy to Ottawa, the first convoy to Ottawa. United We Roll. Carol Boisvert, councillor municipal in, I don't know how to say that. Verchere. I have no idea how to say that word. But good to see some folks from Quebec. Councillor Town of Whitecourt, Alberta, Paul Chauvette. Oh, very good. These are new. Derek Fildebrand, another friend of the show, friend of mine. I don't know if we can say friend. I have met Derek and talked to him a few times, but I consider him a friend. Alan Warnock, former alderman, City of Airdrie, Alberta. Marion Post, former councillor, Township of Wollaston, Ontario. Former mayor, John Mutton, Municipality of Clarington, and the list is growing. So it was really good to see this come along. It was long overdue. So it's good to see people putting their partisanship aside for this issue. I mean, you have Derek Sloan with the CPC, you have Maxime Bernier with the PPC on the federal side, and you have Randy, an MPP. He's independent, of course, but so it's good to see this happening. We need to see more people. So I'm going to encourage people again. I mentioned it on my previous show. Copy this link, send an email to your representative, whether it's a city councillor, a mayor, an MLA in your province, or MPP in Ontario's sake, or your MP. Send them this link. Ask them why they haven't joined. Ask them why their position is what it is. Are they following party lines to stay in the good graces of the party, or are they doing what's best for their community? So force them to answer at least the questions, and pressure them to join this coalition. It's extremely important. Anyways, I just wanted to show that because I forgot to show it the last show. So we got a good group in here so far tonight, 236 so far. So that's awesome. Hey, Jody Craven, good to see you. Yeah. So anyways, we missed last night due to me rearranging my office and setting up my new system, and just didn't have the time to put it all together. One other thing before I get going is I have to do a little bit of business. Where are you? Sorry, guys. I just have to. I'm still navigating and setting up this system, so I'm. Sometimes I won't be able to find things as quickly as before. Hopefully, what I need is here. If not, then I'll have to wait until next time. But I think, yeah, I'll search for it during the show. So, yes, so we couldn't do it last night, and of course Fridays is our regular night with Salim Mansur. and we'll do it tonight. And lucky for all of us, Salim is here. He's backstage. So without further ado, my good friend Salim Mansur. How are you, my friend?
Very good, Mark. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Good to see you.
Same here.
So one note of business before we get into our discussion, Salim. I guess it's fair to announce that you are now officially a contributing member of Epoch Times. So I wanted to wish you congratulations on that.
Thank you, my friend.
I read the article that you pointed out, and fantastic. Thank you for. I'm glad that your voice is being heard on a much wider platform. It's incredibly important.
Yes, I'm happy that I'm on board with people at Epoch Time, that they invited me to join them. And yes, it gives some of us an opportunity to take our ideas and our thoughts and our views to that wider audience in North America. I also think, Mark, and I would like your own feedback on this. My own sense is that the Epoch Time is, in a sense, going to become the main source of global news, apart from North American news, Canadian news, whatever, but the global news, especially on China, on the Asia Pacific region. And because of its reach and of its interest and the issues that the Epoch Time and its people are focused on, that the editorial board and the publishers are focused on, it will become, in a sense, the single most important voice in terms of anti-globalism and anti-global governance. And I hope more and more Canadians will look to the Epoch Time for their own for news and information, and to, in a sense, arm themselves with facts and figures that the corporate mainstream media is not going to provide, or they're going to censor.
Yeah, absolutely. I of course, I've been watching, reading what the Epoch Times has put out, and some of the video productions they've done, and I think they play an incredibly important role. And they come to the table, obviously, with credibility. They do the research. Everything they put forward is researched and legitimate. So yeah, I mean, fantastic that they're out there, and they're getting more and more popular. And so very good for all of us, and very good for them that you're part of it, because I think you can play a very important role in that, Salim.
Thank you. Thank you.
So here we are. You know, Salim, I mentioned in my intro that we knew that the globalists would have to change things dramatically to achieve the goals that they have set out, both in Sustainable Development Agenda and now the Great Reset. We knew that they would be transforming a world. That's what they told us. That was in the title of Sustainable Development, signed in 2015. So we knew that through this transformation process that they're going to put us with, that nobody voted for, that nobody was aware of, that these would create consequences where the masses would at some point start waking up to this and start pushing back to it. We didn't know that it was going to come in through the form of a pandemic, but here we are. And of course, the Chinese have played a large role in that, and we'll talk about that. But it's I'm starting to see people waking up, Salim, that haven't been following us, that haven't been awake to this point. But through COVID, they're starting to wake up to that something stinks, something's not right, something's off. And I mean, COVID's provided us with a lot of material to help wake up the masses and to show them and point it out to people, you know, some of the things that are wrong just within COVID. And then while we do that, we keep in mind and reminding people that this isn't a conspiracy theory. this agenda that we keep talking about. This is fact. They've told us themselves, and so through this COVID and the measures and everything they're putting through, and then you have Trudeau openly telling everybody that they're going to use COVID as an opportunity for a reset and an opportunity to achieve the goals of sustainable development. So it's real. We know it's real. We've known it's been real for a long time, but now we're seeing it. Now we're seeing them actually act on and using COVID as a platform to usher in these goals.
Yes, that's quite true. But the sad thing, Mark, as I was listening to your opening remarks, and now as you express yourself about the awakening, the sad thing that I cannot help but observe is how many of our neighborhood has to be burned down and ruined. How many people have to be hurt and dead before the people in the neighborhood realize that these fires are not accidental fire, that there is an arson in the community that has been going around and destroying the community. That's the sad part, you know. It's 1 year now and counting that the Wuhan flu was exported out of China, the coronavirus, COVID-19. And we have been now in a lockdown almost approaching 1 year, and there doesn't seem to be any end. And so my question, yes, people are awakening, but awakening to what? The issue is that this was not an accident, that this was not something that happened out of a natural process of a virus that mutated and then that went out of the area where it mutated and struck the people. That this was a deliberate attack on the free world. The Chinese launched a bioweapon, and then subsequently they launched a cyber warfare against the United States, the leader of the free world, and they achieved their purpose. They achieved their purpose. They brought down a precedent, unprecedented, and the consequences that is not going to be played out. So yes, there is an awakening, but an awakening to the reality that the people who have been working for the last 30 years to bring about the new world order has more or less succeeded. We have to recognize that if they're not going to push it back, if we can. I mean, it is very hard, Mark. Every fiber in my body, I want to be optimistic, and I want to live long enough to see that these people are defeated. But I know also that we are heading into, from the point of view of those of us who stand for freedom, who stand against global governance, who stand against globalism, which is basically communism, Marxism, imposed top down, that we are deep inside it now.
Salim, and I couldn't agree more. I'm going to ask you. We talked about this a couple of days ago, and I'm going to broach it again here because I think it's important to have the discussion. So when we look at, and I believe this, and I've said this before, that I believe that whatever this COVID is, whatever this virus is, whatever this illness is, that the Chinese had a hand in releasing it. Now that's. There's no direct evidence or smoking gun. There's a lot of gunpowder and there's a lot of ammunition, spent rounds lying around, but there's no smoking gun that the Chinese released this bioweapon on the masses. Now, having said that, I believe that this was initiated by the Chinese in cooperation with the World Health Organization, and then from there, it flowed from there to all the other governments, especially throughout the West. So there's a contingent of folks, and there's some doctors that would back this up, that this is no worse than the flu, and the numbers sort of reflect that. Now, in our conversation, you had mentioned, your experience. So I'd like to go through what your thoughts are in relation to this illness, and how that squares with what you think the Chinese have done and what I think the Chinese have done. Because I'm sort of the mind that it is or mirrors, at least in numbers, the annual flu, and all of a sudden the flu has been eradicated. And so square that circle for us, would you?
Well, let me, before I make the attempt to square the circle as you are asking me, let me first make the observation point that I am not a physician, and the issue of COVID-19 in the context of the virus, how lethal it is, how morbid it is, how it mutated, etc., is not part of my understanding. That's above or aside from my pay grade. What I was looking at is from, again, the political, economic, historical aspect of the issue. So, yes, it is going to be debated to what extent the Wuhan virus emerged accidentally from Wuhan fish market, or whether it was something that was being experimented at the Wuhan virus biolab, the level 4 biolab, the only one in China, where they have been working on coronavirus for a long time, and people that have been working at that lab, some of them have come out and spoken about it, who have left China or was able to get away from China and have spoken about it, their role in the experiments that were taking place. There are also suggestions that there is a Canadian aspect to that relationship, which has not been fully disclosed to any one of us. That is the biolab in Winnipeg and the two Chinese, I believe it was a husband-wife team, who was taken out of there by the RCMP and then expelled from Canada or taken out of Canada. So we don't know. But it is not a matter of speculation. It is a matter of, I believe, record, and more record is coming out and more facts are coming out in terms of the role of Dr. Anthony Fauci and his organization, the NIH in the United States, that had invested money in terms of research money to the Wuhan lab. And so to what extent they are involved in that experiment that led to the development of this coronavirus 19. And I believe further mutation now taking place, there's coronavirus 20, 21, and so on, just as with the flu virus. So that's an aspect. Now, was it deliberately spread by the Chinese? We also know now, and knew it pretty much when the events started happening, that when Wuhan was struck by this Wuhan flu, COVID-19, in November 2019, and spread rapidly, the Chinese did lock down Wuhan and put the people in Wuhan under quarantine so that there could be no travel in and out of Wuhan carrying the virus. However, they did not put a lockdown on international travel, and that's the key issue. People flying into Wuhan from North America and from Europe and other parts of Asia, they went into Wuhan and they came out of Wuhan. Wuhan was a big traffic hub, international traffic hub in the province of Hubei province, Wuhan, the capital. And it was that international travel that spread the Wuhan virus, or COVID-19, into Europe, around the Pacific Rim, and right in early January, the first case that was located and identified in the state of Washington outside of Seattle It was in early January of 2020.
Well,
which then led-
not only that, Salim, but you have, and Kean Bexty did a report on this, and he actually had the RCMP show up on his doorstep because he did that, where he at the military games in Wuhan, where they evacuated the city to host these games, and a large contingent of the Canadian military contingent that were there ended up sick, and they were never tested, and the Canadian public was never made aware, and they were all sent back home to Canada. So I watched a number of people at that time, early on in this pandemic, where George Webb was his name, and he identified the Wuhan games, military games, as playing a role in spreading this illness.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there was that game, there was the traffic again into the province. And so while the Chinese locked down on the internal domestic travel and Wuhan was put in a quarantine, that is Chinese working and living in Wuhan, in the Wuhan population, people who were coming into Wuhan or traveling out of Wuhan, they were affected by what was happening in Wuhan, and they carried it out. One of the worst affected area was Chinese workers, excuse me, migrant workers working in Italy, in the northern region, Lombardy, where the Italians have some of their textile, garment, and fashion industries, and employ Chinese workers. The Chinese workers had come home for the Chinese New Year, and then they traveled back to northern Italy, and Italy was one of the worst affected EU member states. Italy, Spain, and the surrounding area, Austria, and then it spread further. But in North America, as you point out, there was that exchange, military games exchange, and then and Chinese Americans coming back home after the Chinese New Year, landing in the West Coast, and the first cases were identified, which immediately led to President Trump suspending all travels out of China into America, for which he was viciously attacked by the Democrats, by Biden, as being xenophobic, and others, and he turned out to be right. He took those measures, and then came the lockdown. And so we all know, we have been living through this history, and it is only for 2 weeks to flatten the curve, to mitigate the problem, and then it will be over. Well, the 2 weeks went on to a month, went on to 2 months, went on to the entire summer, into fall, into winter, Christmas, and we have never seen a thing like this before. And we can keep talking about this issue, but let me share about what you quite correctly are pointing out, that this is, in terms of at least the numbers, the statistics, no different than the annual flu, and the recovery rate, as you pointed out, is over 99%. So let me quickly, I don't want to overwhelm anyone with numbers, but here are some numbers that I just scrolled down. These numbers are, of course, rolling numbers, and I've taken it from the Johns Hopkins World Meter on Coronavirus. It is the numbers of February 1st, 2021. That's only a few days ago. The global population is 7.8 billion people. 7.8 billion. The global cases that has been identified, and again, this is from the Johns Hopkins daily meter, is 103 million a couple of days ago. That amounts to barely 1%, the cases that have been identified, false positives. Right. Well, barely 1% of the global population. And the global death is 2,230,000. I'm rounding up the decimals. So yep. 2,230,000. And that amounts to 0.3%. It's a fraction of 1% of casualty. Now, in the context of America, the US population is 331 million. The global population is 7.8 billion. So 331 million, that's 10 times the population of Canada. The US cases of a couple of days ago was 26,185,357. The point to note is that the more people are tested, the more false positive will be shown. And so the numbers will keep on increasing. That 26.2 million people, 26.2 million people amounts to 0.34% of the global population. Again, 1/3 of 1%. And in terms of American population, it's about 8%. 8% of the American population that have tested positive. Now, the US casualty is 441,000 rounded off, which amounts to, in the global terms, 0.006%. That's almost one in about 6,000 people. And that is 0.1% of the American population.
Right.
So again, it's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. In the case of Canada, Canadian population 37 million. Our cases that have been recorded is about 782,000. That's less than a million. And it amounts to 0.01%. 0.01% of the global population and 2% of the Canadian population. And the Canadian death is 20,000. 20,000. I'm rounding up the figure. And that amounts to, in global terms, 0.0003%. 3 people in over 10,000, or 0.05% of Canadian population.
Right.
Now, given these figures, every single death, we have to keep repeating it, is valuable, is immensely. One death is one too many, one might say. But the question that, from the point of view of not only the people, but from the point of view of governments around the world, and especially Canada is a G7 country, America is a G7 country. We are the top of the world in terms of our economy, of our resources, of our sciences. Where is the balance between the lockdown that has cost us in figures and economic figures? The Fraser Institute released the figures yesterday or day before yesterday of our economy. The Canadian economy in 1 year, the federal and provincial debt and deficit now is approaching $2 trillion. It's almost twice the GDP. You know, every single province, Ontario and east of Ontario, the provincial and federal debt is now over 100% of the GDP. And west of Ontario, that is from Manitoba to British Columbia, it is in the range of average 75% of the GDP. Saskatchewan and Alberta has somewhat better comparative figure. It is no comfort, but only in terms of Canada, that the Saskatchewan figures are 70% of the GDP, and Alberta's figures are 66% of the GDP. So the burning question is, and the same thing in the United States, is, you know, what is the balance? What was the right proportionality between the response of the government in locking down the entire country and wrecking the entire country's economy, which means lives, societies, social relationships, our children, their life. I mean, a child that is 10-year-old, 1 year of lockdown means 1/10 of his life is gone, taken away from him. What justification existed? And that is what I was pointing out to you, the squaring of the circle, that this, what we have gone through and we are going through, has nothing, absolutely nothing, I will argue, to do with our health security, with our safety. Right. It has everything to do with politics.
Yep.
It is to create fear. It is to intimidate. It's to coerce, and it's to control the population and drive them in a manner into which these governments have decided that they want globalism and they want global governance. And that is where, finally, just to wrap this up, I was pointing out, and I made the observation that yes, the people might be awakening up, but the deed has been done. It's like the arsonists in the community, in the neighborhood, that have gone around and put fire and burned down the houses. And now we know that this was not an accident, this was not a natural calamity, this was not a forest fire, a summer fire, that this was an arson that destroyed our home, that destroyed our family, that destroyed our lives, that destroyed our property, earning. And that is what the government has become. The government of Canada and all the 10 provinces, Justin Trudeau and every single premier in this country, they are arsonists. Therefore, they are criminals. But who is going to question that? It's just like what has happened in the United States. The Chinese launched a bioweapon warfare and a cyber attack on the United States. They brought down an elected president, a president that had won the 2020 election by just about any objective standard. And the fact that the globalist corporate media will not discuss it means that they cannot discuss it. They say they have debunked it. Where have they debunked it? Not one single court has looked at the evidence and has allowed the evidence to be presented. Not one single institution have done an objective analysis of the evidence that has been available. And so that is what has happened. And that's where we are. That the greatest powers in this world, in terms of economy and political system and history, the elite of these countries basically sold their people and sold their country to globalism and the Chinese communists.
100%, Salim. And so, and as we've said all along, and as I've said all along, fairly early, it really doesn't matter, quite honestly, whether or not the Chinese manufactured this particular bug in a lab and then released it on their population and then allowed it to go out of their country. It's all part of building a narrative of fear. And so they can then turn around and push the measures, the restrictions, the destruction of the economy through that fear. And so it really still doesn't matter that it's manufactured, it came from a bat. Because it was all used to build a narrative so they could achieve these goals. Now, when we talk, I still get called a conspiracy theorist, of course, but at the end of the day, we've known this for years based on some of these globalists' own comments in regarding the New World Order and the convergence of fascism and communism, in Cristina Figueres promoting the idea, Maurice Strong promoting the idea of bringing down the the economies of the Western world, bringing down the industrialized world because we are the enemy to the environment, and essentially humanity is the enemy of the environment. This is what they have all said for many years. And so with that knowledge and that context, it's really easy to then observe what's happening, what they're doing through this pandemic to achieve the goals, the stated goals that they've had for many years. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's moved from a conspiracy to in the open, and there's nothing secret about it, as it used to sort of be. And here we are. So again, it's this idea that we have to focus on all of these little parts. I mean, I get it to a certain degree. At the end of the day, all of this is being used to achieve these goals, and it's not conspiracy theory by any stretch of the imagination.
Mark, I mean, I know, I mean, our conversation is, in that sense, unstructured and free conversation, in which people who are joining us, they have their observation and their comments that is coming through to you that you can read. I would like to say this, however, it is no more a question of us having to be defensive and talk about conspiracy theory, and that we defensive mean we are not engaging in conspiracy theory. I think we are way past the time. It's way past the time. There is evidence, there is objectivity, and the numbers speak for them. The question is whether we can anymore. It's not about conspiracy or not conspiracy. It is about whether we, you and I, and people like us, common people, average people, Canadian people, with the capacity to reason, to critically examine things, can they write and speak freely and openly in a country that we took for granted, at least until last year or beginning of this crisis, that we were a G7 country. We are one of the oldest democracies in the world, a continuous democracy. We are a country of freedom, a constitution, a rule of law, and our charter rights and freedom are ours. It is for us, the people, not for the government. Can we anymore rely on these things, or it's all been turned around? And the evidence is that it has been turned around. There is no longer any law and order. When an 85-year-old woman in my neighborhood, in Aylmer, who as a young girl, she was barely 9 years old, if I remember correctly, came to Canada with her parents. Her grandparents fled from Russia when the communists took over, the Stalinists took over, I believe, in Ukraine, and the horrors of Ukraine and the horrors of Russia,
right?
The communism. And her grandparents with her parents left for Poland. And this lady, 85 years old now, she was born in Poland. And then they had to leave Poland as refugees with the coming of Hitler and the Second World War. And she arrived in Canada when she was 9 years old. She lived all her life in Canada, and she was given a ticket of something like $800, an old lady by herself, a ticket for going to a church by men in uniform. We are so proud of our men in uniform, our men and women in uniform, Canadian men and women in uniform, through 2 world wars. Korean War, peacekeeping operations, and our police force, the law enforcement agencies. There are no agencies in Canada that is as much respected by the people as our people in uniform. And yet the men in uniform go into this house of an 85-year-old lady to give her a ticket because she attended a church. This is where we have arrived as a country. And this is not a solitary story.
No.
This is a common story now in Canada. The way our men in uniform have behaved against people who are the most law-abiding and generous people anywhere in the world.
Yep.
And so it is a question to ask, what has the people and authority done to this country that was built by the most law-abiding, generous, respectful, hearted people? What have they done to these people? And what they have done is basically, precisely, to break us down, to break down our culture of freedom, our culture of faith and tradition. Christianity is now under an open attack in our country. For the first time in Christmas, people could not go to the church. I go to church on Christmas midnight mass ever since I have been a young man. And I would take my son. I told you that in privately, and I'm sharing it with you and my friends. And, for the first time, I did not go to my church here in Canada, the St. Peter's in London, St. Peter's Cathedral, which I love to go for midnight mass because of the ambiance, because of sharing with friends. What have we done to our country?
Salim, I have to, and I've mentioned this before, I'll mention it again. So we're in such a state that I never dreamed as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, that I would ever have to do. I've read a lot of books and a lot of history in regards to this, but I actually am now at this very time planning meetings, clandestine meetings, underground meetings in my province where I can't advertise the location. I can't tell anybody publicly where I'm going, what I'm going to be talking about, because if I do, I risk the chance of me being fined, possibly arrested, who knows, and the people who are hosting this gathering of getting tickets and probably some sort of threats from the government. We're at a time, Salim, where we have to plan underground meetings to share political perspectives, to share information. It's mind-boggling, really, when you experience it firsthand like this. And of course, I've also been fined 4 times for exercising my right to assemble peacefully. But it's amazing the time that we're in.
Yeah. Yes. Mark, can you hear me?
I can, yeah. Except when I was talking, I put you on mute because we're getting a lot of feedback.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, and that's should not be merely a matter of concern. This is our future, our children's future. What country are we handing down to them? I have today, for instance, the National Post and the editorial, the comment, the Rex Murphy. I love Rex Murphy. We are friends. And today's Rex Murphy column, Canada's worst government ever.
Right.
He talks about where we are, this and the situation, and that's what you and we thought we were going to be talking about this evening. We have literally a man who is a walking carcass, who has been installed. I refuse to say inaugurated. Who has been installed as the president of the United States. He's a walking carcass, and they've done it deliberately. They don't care. It is no longer a question of that they care about, what sort of person is now sitting in the White House or in the Oval Office in the White House, because it is the deep state that is going to run the country. So we have a prime minister who's not a walking carcass, but a vacuum head. And they don't care. It is going to be our version of deep state that is going to be running the country. All the four political parties are basically globalist party. There is no variation or difference between or among any of the four parties, the Liberal, the Conservative, the NDP, and the Green Party, and in Quebec, the Bloc Québécois. No different than in the United States. There's no difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, you know. They are globalist party. We have the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, who is a board member of the World Economic Forum. And so she is a member of the board of the World Economic Forum, the people who run the Davos annual meeting. You know, she is in a sense being mentored by George Soros. Nothing is anymore hidden. It's all in your face. That is in our face. This is where we are. This is the elite now no longer have any pretense that they're representing the people of the country, a democracy. There's no pretense anymore. You know, in the United States, an election was stolen in the broad daylight, so to speak. You know, and the elite has said that if you're going to talk about it, we're going to deplatform you. If you're still going to talk about it, we are going to indict you. And then next, God knows what else we will do. So we are in effect. That's what my first column was in the Epoch Time. We have now fully embraced the China way. And that is what we were, the proud, you know, a system of democracy, as I said, one of the oldest democracies in the world. And now our elite has embraced the China way. What is the China way? That's something we need to talk about, it, whether we have the time today or down the road. But it is so important that we understand, because it is not enough to say, you know, we have woken up. I respect that. I want to see people wake up. But woken up to what? So that we can, you know, hopefully find the resource inside of us, intellectually, emotionally, psychologically, to turn this around.
Right.
Because if we don't do that, we are totally lost. And this is not an abstraction, and this is not an exaggeration.
No, 100% not. And yes, Salim, if you want to dive into China, let's do that. Go right ahead.
Well, look at it. I mean, China won. I mean, that's to begin with. China won. In 2020, China came out victorious. Just to put this in context, in 2018, President Trump went to the UN General Assembly, like every president goes every year at the opening of the UN General Assembly in the fall. It begins in September. And by protocol, the President of the United States is the first speaker on the assembly list. So in 2018, President Trump team at the UN General Assembly was about American policy in terms of America first. And President Trump went through the record of the past 1 year, that is from the time he took the oath of office in 2017 till the end of 2017, the booming economy that he talked about, how America had come back, you know, in terms of jobs, unemployment figures, employment figures, stock market booming, and where he was headed in terms of the economic takeoff that had also huge impact for us in Canada. And in that speech, President Trump took on the issue of globalism. And he said, and if I recall, I'm recalling this, my memory, he said something as follows, and I'm paraphrasing him. He said that we will never surrender America's sovereignty to an unelected and unaccountable global bureaucracy. He further said we reject in all forms globalism and global governance, and we are inviting everyone, that is the member states of the United Nations that he was speaking to, we are inviting everyone to stand with us and defend their sovereignty and their nation state.
Yep.
That was in 2018.
Yep.
That was a clear signal of where America under President Trump was heading and standing up to. And as I've said on a number of occasions on your on this platform, that Trump was in a sense the last man standing against globalism.
And probably one of my all-time favorite speeches, given the circumstances.
Absolutely. Now the question is whether how he is going to be judged historically, and we might not be around. But now you can see everything about Trump is being wiped out and airbrushed from the platform. It is very interesting. I went yesterday, I think it was, I went into the search machine. I went into Google and then into other search machine. I wanted to get some of the speeches of President Trump and the UN, and they were not available.
Can't find it. Yeah.
They have been taken down. So that's what we are facing, you know. But anyhow, that's the context. In 2018, he talked about globalism and global governance and rejected it completely. Well, in 2020, they struck. That is, the globalists, in alliance with the Chinese communists, struck. They attacked, and President Trump has been removed. You know, so they won, and that's where we are. So, what we have to understand and what we need to look into and examine, time doesn't give us too much time. I mean, may not be enough tonight, but we'll go on. But here, to begin with, the Chinese communists are not communists. They are Oriental despots. Communism is simply an ideology to justify the despotism. Not that communism is any worthy ideology. It is an ideology, as I have said, it is an illegitimate offspring of the Enlightenment. It stands against everything that the age of Enlightenment stood for: freedom, freedom of worship, freedom of religion, individual rights, etc., separation of religion and politics, critical thinking, which led to the scientific revolution, industrial revolution, age of discovery, communism and Jacobinism, that was in the French Revolution, and then Bolshevism, communism, which came about in the Russian Revolution and the Chinese Revolution, stand against all of those values, you know, and it is based upon collectivism, that's class struggle. But the irony is that both China and Russia were the most backward society. And so they were already despotic society, and Marxism gives their legitimacy to the people who seize power. In the case of China, it is pure and simple Oriental despotism, a small group of people running a huge country in terms of population, which is basically a feudal and slave population. And we can see that, whether it is in Tibet, whether it is in Xinjiang right now, and all around, the Chinese population is basically a slave population at the command and control of the Beijing leadership. But this is the population that gives the economic surplus to not only the Chinese leadership, but now it gives the economic surplus to the leadership, the elite that are globalists around the world, the billionaire oligarch. To give you just one example, a very quick example to explain this from a very practical product, not a very high technological product. Take the Nike shoe that the basketball stars they wear, you know, James LeBron and the whole lot of them. My son was a complete basketball fanatic, and I used to sit and watch basketball with him. But for the last 2 years, I haven't seen a single basketball game. So I don't remember all the basketball players right now, you know. But James LeBron name comes up very frequently. Now, the NBA, as an organization, as a sports organization, their biggest market today is China. And that is where they are selling the product, that is the basketball game, to the Chinese population as they sell it to in America, and for ad revenue and all of that. And the biggest sponsors of the basketball players and as individual and as a product are the sports manufacturers. Nike is one of them, one of the biggest. And the product is the Nike shoe. And you know, any father and mother who's had young children knows, you know, the dream prize of a 10-year-old, 11-year-old boy or a girl is to get a Nike shoe, and a Nike shoe in all different colors and so on. Each of those pair costing anywhere between $75 to $100 Canadian, you know. But the manufacturing cost of that Nike shoe is barely a couple of dollars. And the workers making the Nike shoe is barely living at $1 a day wages. That's the economic surplus I'm talking about. That is right. The difference between the cost, the wage cost and the manufacturing cost and the sales price. Well, that is the market that they're protecting. Yep. James LeBron, whose maybe grandparents were slaves, today defends communist China against President Trump because he draws his money out of China. So does Bezos, so does Bloomberg, so does Tim Cook of Apple, so does Bill Gates of Microsoft, and so on and so forth, right? Yep. So that's what it is. It's Oriental despotism with a slave population that is manufacturing goods based upon market in the Western world and investments coming from the West. This is the 30-year thing that began in the early 1990s when China became the World Trade Organization member and opened up its economy to the investment from the West so that it could rapidly create its mode of production that the ruling class in China, that is the Beijing communists, want for themselves, to become a military industrial power from the capital that is exported from the West, but primarily from America and now from Canada and Western Europe. And the market then is Canada, Western Europe, United States. That is the link that has to be clearly understood. It can be talked then also in personality terms. I just give you one quick example to close this linkage. In the 1980s, when the relationship started taking on a new flavor, President Nixon had gone to China in 1972, but that was during the height of the Cold War, and that was precisely to exploit the rivalry and the enmity, adversarial relationship between Mao's China, Mao Zedong was alive, and Soviet Union. China saw the Soviet Union as a country that had betrayed Stalinism, communism, And so China saw Soviet Union as an enemy. Soviet Union looked down upon China. America took the opportunity to exploit that relationship. But by the 1980s, before Ronald Reagan came to power in 1980, Jimmy Carter not only recognized China, Jimmy Carter was a Democrat, recognized China, but gave China the most favored nation status. And the next thing that happened, Reagan administration was a period when nothing moved on that direction. But as soon as Reagan was gone and George Herbert Walker Bush became the president in 1989, a new relationship sprang up with China. And then when Bill Clinton came to power, George Bush was defeated in the 1992 election. He thought he would win, have a second term, but he was defeated. Bill Clinton came to power. Bill Clinton immediately extended the World Trading Organization membership to China. And that's the beginning. So we're looking back 30 years. That's the beginning where this relationship was fused between United States and China, where China became the recipient of American investment. And money started flowing into China. Deindustrialization began from America. China became the main supply chain, and production went offshore to China to take advantage of the labor costs, which was basically slave labor costs. And so that was turned offshore. American jobs went offshore for 30 years. That's exactly what President Trump was trying to reverse when he became elected in 2016. So 1980, this man, Jiang Zemin, had risen in China to become the mayor of Shanghai. Shanghai, the second most important city in China after Beijing. So Jiang Zemin becomes the mayor of Shanghai somewhere around about the mid-1980s. And at that time, his contemporary in the United States, Dianne Feinstein, became the mayor of San Francisco. Dianne Feinstein, mayor of San Francisco in the 1980s, Jiang Zemin, the mayor of Shanghai in the 1980s in China. They meet. Jiang Zemin is invited to come to America. He comes to San Francisco, and a relationship is forged between Dianne Feinstein and Jiang Zemin. Dianne Feinstein is the mayor of San Francisco, which is the center of the Silicon Valley, which will become the hub of the new growth in information technology and the center of the big tech over the next decade. And Jiang Zemin will become the president of China. But the relationship was forged when they were both mayors of Shanghai and San Francisco. The rest is history. Mayor Jiang Zemin, later on as the leader of China, one of the most powerful Chinese politicians, would direct Chinese money into San Francisco and into Silicon Valley. And the Silicon venture capitalists would direct their production and would begin offshoring their production into China. Whether it was Steve Jobs, whether it was Bill Gates, whether it was Tim Cook, the whole lot of them, Google, and so on and so forth, they started offshoring their production to China. And the mayor of Silicon Valley, Dianne Feinstein, would go on to become the senior senator from California in Washington. Okay, she would end up being the ranking member, the chairman of committees when the Democrats were in the majority, when the Democrats were in the minority in the Senate, the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, of the Intelligence Committee, and so on. Her private chauffeur, technically a chauffeur, but actually her office manager would be a Chinese who would later on be shown to be a Chinese spy for 20 years. Her husband, Richard Bloom, would become a mega millionaire on to becoming a billionaire as a result of the doors that would be open to him because he was the husband of Dianne Feinstein. Okay? The same relationship will happen with the second senator from California, Senator Barbara Boxer. Same situation would emerge. The Chinese penetration would begin in the West Coast, but it would not stop at the West Coast. It would go into just about every city and reach out into every political arena and business arena, you know, and that is diffusion. You have Senator Feinstein, you have Senator Mitch McConnell, who was a majority senator, Republican senator in the Senate. Now he's the minority senator after the election of 2020. Senator Mitch McConnell is also one of the richest senators in the Senate club. His wife is the daughter of James Chow, who is the primary shareholder of the China Shipping Corporation that builds ships for the Chinese Communist Party, that is for China, both in the civilian shipping industry and in the naval military shipping industry. So the daughter of the man who is one of the most important shipping magnate in communist China is the wife of the majority leader. And there are other such relationships. I just mentioned two, okay? So in effect, over 30 years, the fusion of Chinese interests of the Communist Party and the deep state or the globalists became one. You know, there is no sort of a daylight between the two of them except for rhetorical reason. And in effect, the Chinese Communist Party have basically bought over the American elite to the extent that it was just before the election of 2020, November 2020. I think I talked about that in this program, in this platform with you before the election. It was in a public conference in Beijing that a professor, a dean of the Beijing University, or a university located in Beijing, the name is just now escaping me, it'll come back as I'm speaking, but the name of the man was Di Dongshen. Di Dongshen, wise dean of the university, was speaking to a Chinese audience, and the tape was made available, where he talked about that in the past 30 years, all the problems between China and America could be solved with just a few phone calls because the Chinese had access to and basically own all the various political leaders in America, except for Trump. And Trump had become a problem, and that they would have to deal with that problem, and they will deal with that problem. In a sense, it was a warning. And that's what happened. The Chinese basically took down Trump, you know. Now, who among all the various countries around the United States is possibly celebrating most this election result? I would say it is the Canadian elite, because we are probably far more in the pocket of the Chinese than are the American, given the size of our country, size of our population, and the politics of multiculturalism, and so on, that we, over the last 50 years, have developed or inculcated. So I can say, just to conclude this, I can say that during the last few years, one of the hotspots of the difficulty in Canadian-Chinese relationship was a result of us holding this woman, Meng Wanzhou, the daughter of the owner or the main magnate of Huawei in China, which is financed by the Chinese Communist Party, the G5 system. Meng Wanzhou is being held because there is an extradition requested for her by the Trump administration.
Yep.
That the Huawei was involved in breaking the sanctions that the Americans had imposed on Iran. Meng Wanzhou is the daughter of the Huawei chief shareholder and Communist Party member, but she's also the chief financial officer, and so she's being held in Vancouver. Well, now that Biden is president, and the Chinese have basically bought Biden over the last dozen years,
Yep.
and his son Hunter Biden, you can see that, or expect that Biden is going to basically turn down this whole request for extraditing Meng Wanzhou to America to face the charges. He's going to drop the charges, and consequently, Justin Trudeau will be more than happy to send Meng Wanzhou back home, and hopefully the two Michaels that the Chinese have been holding as prisoners, Michael Kovrig and Michael Sparrow, will be released. The Chinese-Canadian relationship will fall back into nice harmony as a result. So there you have it. Ottawa really must be celebrating. I mean, you have Chrystia Freeland as a finance minister and as deputy prime minister attending the conference, the Davos conference this year, which was held on virtual, not physical conference at Davos, but it was on Zoom or whatever mechanism they had, a virtual conference. But there she is. That's where Justin Trudeau is. But that's where just about all our political parties are. That's where Erin O'Toole is, as was Stephen Harper. And it is the China way. The China way is to buy the Western powers that they need through offering them the money that they can offer them through what they have as their commodity, which is the slave labor. And we are ready to, participate in that. There goes our concerns about human rights. There goes our concern about all the values that we say that we cherish, that is, as Canadians or as Americans, freedom of speech, freedom of worship, respect for individual rights, respect for minorities. China is committing genocide right now as we are speaking in Xinjiang. Its record in Tibet. It crushed democracy movement in Hong Kong only this last summer. It is threatening Taipei with military exercise, and now with Biden in power, there is no fear of retaliation. And that's the China way that we are headed into.
Absolutely, it is 100%, and I mean we're seeing it. Again, look back even 5 years ago. If you said that you would be receiving fines or you would be arrested in Canada for simply assembling peacefully or exercising your right under free expression, and you would be getting tickets and arrested and locked up and put into solitary confinement. It's happening as we speak. You would have thought that we were crazy, but here we are. And yet there's still a large contingent of the population that's saying, yay, great job. Thank you for keeping us safe. it's insane. And so we have those people that, you know, somehow we have to, I guess, try to reach them, or not, or just forget about those and just focus on the people that really honestly do cherish freedom. Yeah, Salim, it's a daunting time in our history, and very critical. um Once again, I appreciate you coming on and putting context to all of this, because it's incredibly important that people understand where this is coming from, who's initiating it, what are what is the agenda. And it is all connected to COVID. It was connected to climate change. It still is. Um, so I really appreciate you taking the time again, Salim, to really wrap this up and put it into context. And we'll expand more on this as we keep coming together and having these chats.
Yes, thank you, Mark. To put a sort of a final touch on this, final only in the sense to put it on the table. Biden, on his installation in office on January 20th, broke all record of all previous 45 presidents in signing the number of executive orders he signed in one day. I think he signed more than 17 the very first hour of after his installation. And among the executive orders he signed was joining the Paris Accord, canceling the Keystone Pipeline, and those two I just put on notice because there it is, Paris Accord. That's the globalist agenda. And canceling the Keystone Pipeline is also part of the globalist agenda. But all of those Canadians who were all dancing and cheering and denouncing Trump for the last 4 years, well, there you have it. I mean, there you have your Paris Accord, there you have your Keystone Pipeline, and there is no concern about the layoff in jobs, the economy. I mean, we are already close to $2 trillion in debt and deficit in the country. In 1 year, we have accumulated almost $400 billion deficit. And here our own resources, we're going to shut down, and our own economy, we're going to blow it further apart. Justin Trudeau has put down carbon tax somewhere around in the neighborhood of 470%. It is insane, but there you have it. And what are the people, that is, what are they being informed about by the Canadian media? It is basically, that the Prime Minister is absconding from his position, but everything is fine, he is still running in the public opinion poll ahead of whatever the opposition exists in this country. And the people on one side, yes, there's an awakening. On the other side, they're resigned to elect the same old, and expect a different result. So, it is simultaneously, there is awakening, but there's also tremendous amount of concern which drives one into despair or despondency. How are we going to go about this? Well, we'll talk in the future. But the people have to decide, because there's not going to be anybody coming down from wherever to save us. We have to decide whether this is what we want or we are going to radically change.
Sorry. Sorry. Thanks, Rio.
No,
Rio kept knocking me off the screen to get my attention. I had realized that I was muted. Anyways, to close on this and a little bit of point going forward, it's a little frustrating to me, Salim, that I went into the PPC with my eyes wide open, but I joined the PPC because of the platform that Max brought in creating it. And it allowed me and people like me and yourself and others who were wide awake and understanding as to this globalist agenda. And so that's why I joined the PPC, because I saw it as a way to educate people, as a platform that I could speak to people about this issue, and that the party would stand against this globalization, globalism, globalist agenda, and be a Canada first sort of entity. To this very day, I'm still getting discussions. I'm still getting people pushing back against the PPC simply because of particular reasons, when it's staring everybody in the face of who represents a Canada first, anti-globalist agenda party, and Canadians that want and cherish freedom, liberty, justice, prosperity. And so it's really frustrating to me that even Canadians that are somewhat awake or understand what's happening still don't look at what's right in front of them, as far as if we want to resolve this politically, and even if we get an opportunity to, who knows when the next election is. But the option, the solution, we'll say, quote unquote, is if we're going to solve it politically, is the PPC, based on what we represent. And so it's really frustrating. This isn't about getting me elected or getting you elected or getting any particular individual elected. It's about what it represents, and it's about an entity, a political entity in Canada that stands for our nation and stands for our sovereignty. I find it very frustrating when the proposed political solution is right there in front of us, and people still push back and talk about splitting the vote. It's just insane to me, which tells me when I hear this vote split argument, it drives me insane, because it only tells me and only exposes the person who's saying it that they don't understand what the establishment is, including the CPC.
They do not want to understand, Mark. It's not they don't understand. They do not want to understand. At the end of the day, we're talking about people, not children. We're talking about people. And of course, the Liberal and the NDP, they would like more and more to lower the age so that there are more children voting. I mean, we have dumbed down the education. We have dumbed down the culture. We have dumbed down just about everything in our society. So that we can be where we have arrived. That people have dumbed down. People have very little clue and understanding of how an economy works. What numbers represent. If with less than a fraction of 1%, less than 1% of casualty rate of a coronavirus is to bring about a complete lockdown of the economy, and the people are going along with it, and an 85-year-old woman gets a ticket for $800, it is a country that has lost its mind. And that's what we have to say. We are a country, we are a society, we are a civilization, the West, that has entirely lost its mind. It is not simply the political leaders, because that's only one part of the equation. There's always an X and a Y. The political leaders are simply the mirror image of the population who elects them. So we as a people have lost our mind. And once we have recognized that, then maybe we will have to talk in a language of how do we bring about a remedy for the situation. We cannot just go on in the same way, in the same breath. And I believe that the West has lost its mind. I mean, we are seeing, in a sense, the decline and fall and end of the Western civilization, as historically over the past 1,000 years it has come about. One simple fact, we are a culture now that has destroyed its own religious foundation, Christianity. Whether you are a Christian who believe or don't believe, the foundation is Christianity.
Yep.
And if that foundation has been destroyed, you put salt on that foundation and you have plowed the land with salt, nothing will grow there that will be healthy and productive. And that's where we have arrived. We have arrived with the Bidens, the Obamas, the Aaron O'Toole, the Justin Trudeau, the Jagmeet Singh, and etc. This Doug Ford, Scott Moore, Jason Kenney. We have arrived at a situation where we, the people, have lost their mind. That's what it is. Those of us who still have a mind, we have a responsibility, and you are doing your part. I'm doing my part. It is infinitely small part, but we are doing our part. Despite all of the liabilities, we're trying to reach out and talk to people and drive some sense. That's what Maxime is doing. This Liberty Coalition that you talked about early in the evening, before I came on, that's precisely what it is. Let us first talk sense and bring an end to this lockdown, because this lockdown has nothing to do with health. It is to do everything with how we live. And unless we cannot live, unless we cannot breathe, unless we cannot engage, unless we cannot, hug and go and have a coffee together, how do we return to normalcy? The people who want this way to go on and with 2 masks and 4 masks, well, why don't they stay home and carry on with the 2 masks and 4 masks and so on, and leave us alone? We who want to take the risk, we take the risk every day of our life. I know it is late in the evening and we want to wrap this up, but I have just from the social media a very interesting list of numbers that I quickly jotted down a few weeks ago. This is the number. I think the date was in my diary, December the 11th. And on that date, Mark, again, I won't take too much time. I just want to read a few numbers.
Sure.
Because numbers tell the story. On that day, December 11th, the numbers were in Canada, 142 COVID-related deaths. Now, you and I both know that a COVID-related death can mean any number of things, not simply coronavirus. It could be somebody who had tested coronavirus but was suffering from cardiology or kidney failure. And the death happened, and it is being recorded as a COVID death. So 142 deaths recorded as COVID deaths on December the 11th. And I went to the Facebook and social media and internet just to quickly record some other comparative numbers. And here are the numbers. There were in 2019, 4,157 deaths as a result of suicides, which amounts to 11 deaths per day. There was 80,000 deaths in 2019 of cancer. That amounts to 220 deaths a day. There was 277,000, I'm just rounding up the figure, 277,000 deaths as a result of heart disease. That was 750 deaths a day. There were 6,912 deaths from Alzheimer in 2019. That's 18 deaths a day. 41,500 from diabetes. That was about 113 deaths a day. 57,000 died of strokes. That was about 156 deaths a day. Now, if the media kept telling us every day, cancer, heart, strokes, suicide, we should all go crazy. But that's what the media has been doing every day, telling us so many deaths per day by COVID. But COVID is only a fraction of the deaths per day that happens every day as a result of all the various reasons, But there's been no lockdown for them. But for COVID, they have just destroyed the economy, not only of Canada and the United States. Very interesting. I gave you the figures from America for only from a few days ago. The U.S. death was 441,000. Mark, 441,000, but there are 50 states in America: New York, California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Illinois. I repeat, New York, California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Illinois. 5 states, all Democratic states. They account for 34% of the 441,000 deaths. That is over 140,000 deaths for 5 states, and the balance 200-some thousand deaths for the 45 states. There was no proportionality. No. There was no consistency. There were Democrats lockdown that led to these deaths, and there were 45 other states where there was nothing in proportion to what happened in New York and California and Pennsylvania. It is clear that this is political.
Right. And then throw in the PCR derived numbers, and then those numbers are reduced greatly once again. And so, I mean, we can look at the numbers all day, and they always say the same thing. The proportionality of the numbers versus the measures, just it doesn't compute. It isn't there. It doesn't exist. And yet the media is still able to instill the fear, and here we are.
And that's right. So if the people are waking up, one thing they can do going forward right up now is join the Liberty Coalition and demand an end to lockdown.
Absolutely, 100%. We need, as I mentioned, we got to get people contacting their elected representatives, whether you're in a hamlet governed by a reeve or a mayor, an MLA, an MP. Send them the link, tell them to join, ask them why they're not joining, put some pressure on them. I mean, this is one thing that we can all do that's very easy to do. So just do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Salim.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate your time once again. I look forward to our next chat, hopefully next Friday.
Thank you. So do
back to our regular schedule.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Good night.
Good night,
everybody. Thank you.
All right, another round with the esteemed Salim Mansur. Stick around. We do have another guest this evening. Our good friend Sean Taylor, friend of the show, good friend of mine. I talk to Sean quite frequently. In fact, I think we both use each other as therapists. And I'm sure he's getting a chuckle out of that. Yes, he is backstage. Before we move over to Sean, I just got a couple of things. I got some business to take care of. So let me do that now. We have 3 sponsors for this show. So if you guys, we'll just carry on with them and take care of the business that needs to be taken care of. So our first sponsor is the PNCIP Group. It is a patent and trademark law firm, and they work with businesses across Canada, the United States, and overseas. Most small and medium-sized businesses don't spend much time thinking about patents or trademarks, but intellectual property is not just for big business or R&D firms. Businesses depend on their name, their logos, their slogans, and their reputation, and that's what trademarks are all about. So, for example, you have a restaurant called the Sit and Eat Cafe, where you've worked for years to build a great reputation. But then another restaurant pops up with a similar name, like the Sit and Treat Cafe, and they have awful service and awful food. Well, now when people hear the name Sit and Eat Cafe, they're going to think your restaurant and your competitor's restaurant are the same thing, owned by the same person. Think of what this will do to your reputation. But no problem. Trust trademark registration, because trademark registration can help you stop other businesses from using your valuable name, your logo, even your catchy slogan. Trademark registration is not just for big corporations. It's about protecting your valuable business reputation. So check out PNC IP Group. Their website is in the description below. And yes, it is. So call today and speak with Tapas Payne. He always welcomes your questions, and he's happy to spend time with you. Tell him you're a patriot, and you will qualify for a patriot discount. And that's at website pncipgroup.com. And as I mentioned, it's in the description. Our second sponsor for the evening is our good friend Tegan Osmond. Tegan is a red-pilled life coach. So we've talked about a lot of rough stuff today, as we do every day. So today's sponsor is especially relevant. Tegan Osmond is a fully red-pilled life coach. She gets what's going on right now, and if you're interested, or if you're finding yourself struggling with all of the madness, she can help you get through it. And I'd like to actually have Tegan on the show one of these nights to discuss some of the madness. What's really cool about Tegan is that even before the lockdown and all this COVID stuff, she actually did her training in helping people recover from trauma, from relationships with narcissists, helping people heal from the constant gaslighting and cruelty. And the way she explained it is that we're all being gaslit on a society-wide basis at this point. Most of us are familiar with the Karens harassing people, even calling the cops on anyone who isn't wearing a mask. So we're seeing it now. What we're seeing now is that all the narcissists and anyone with psychopathic tendencies, they're all coming out of the woodwork. They're drawn to any bit of power they can get. So not only is Tegan red-pilled, but she's specifically trained in helping you deal with the trauma from people like that. So if you're having a hard time and you need the sounding board, head on over to her website. It's in the description. Just send her a note in the contact form and she'll arrange a call with you. And again, it's in the description. And our last sponsor for the evening is just strictly in kind. They're promoting the Forum for Canadian Sovereignty. And, of course, we're all in this fight together. So we thought we would just give them a shout. And Alberta Lockdown. Our mission is to build a strong, inclusive community, delivering resources based on facts and our Canadian core values of freedom and community, to accelerate awareness, to inspire and empower Albertans to protect their rights. Together, we're working to protect the lives and livelihoods of Albertans and to provide a central rallying point for all organizations and individuals committed to the same cause. End Alberta Lockdown is a grassroots organization committed to creating a movement not only to protect our rights, but to guarantee the future rights of our families and the generations to come. We are dedicated people fighting for our freedom. And the website is www.endalbertalockdown.com. You can find them on Telegram at End Alberta Lockdown, and you can find them on Facebook at End Alberta Lockdown. So if you're in Alberta, check them out and join the cause. And that's it for the business for tonight. So before I bring Sean on, I wanted to play play this video. You guys probably have seen it, maybe not, but fantastic job. This fella is out of Edmonton. And I'm not a big rap fan by any stretch of the imagination, but this fella, Tom McDonald, I think his name is. Yes, Tom McDonald with Fake Woke. What's happening? Everything is A-okay. You guys should be hearing this, no problem. I don't know why you're not. But anyway, let's try this. Oh, maybe it's because I went off screen. That's probably why. Boomer tech, and I'm not a boomer. Let's start from the top.
I think it's crazy. I'm the one who they labeled as controversial.
Okay, so still no sound. Well, why is that? Now this might be something to do with the new system. For some reason not picking it up because I didn't pull it off. There was sound. I'm not sure. Let me have a look here. All right, let's try one more time, and I'll see, because there's two sound options. One should be direct from my computer. The other is from my mic. I should be able to mute my mic, and you guys should still be able to hear it. But obviously, that's not happening. So let's try it this way. Yeah, Marilyn, I figure that, but it shouldn't be happening. But anyway, we'll do it this way.
I think it's crazy. I'm the one who they labeled as controversial, and Cardi B is the role model for 12-year-old girls. There's rappers pushing Xanax at the top of the billboard, but if I mention race in a song, I'm scared I'll get killed for it. It's backwards, it's getting exponentially dumb. It's more difficult to get a job than purchase a gun. Eminem used to gay bash and murder his mom, and now he doesn't want fans if they voted for Trump. We're ashamed to be American. You should probably love it, cause you have the right to hate it and not get stoned to death in public. As children, we were taught how to walk and talk, but the system wants adults to sit down and shut up. Cancel culture runs the world now, the planet went crazy. Labeled everything we say as homophobic or racist. If you're white, then you're privileged, guilty by association. All our childhood heroes got Me Too'd or they're rapists. They never freed the slaves. They realized that they don't need the chains. They gave us tiny screens, we think we free cause we can't see the cage. They knew that race war would be the game they need to play. For people to big teams, they use the media to feed the flame.
They so fake woke. Facts don't care about feelings. They know they won't tell me what to believe in. They so fake woke. Say woke, say so. They so fake woke. Facts don't care about your feelings.
I think it's crazy how these people screaming facts, but they fake woke. Hate their neighbor because he wears a mask or he stays home. Has a daughter, but his favorite artist said he slays hoes. Picks her up from school, music slaps on the way home. Censorship's an issue because they choose what they erase. There's a difference between hate speech and speech that you hate. I think Black Lives Matter was the stupidest name when the system's screwing everyone exactly the same. I just want to spend Thanksgiving Day with food and my family without being accused of celebrating native casualties. We got so divided, it's black and white and political. Republicans are bigots, libtards if you're liberal. There's riots in our streets and it's just getting worse. Y'all screaming deep on the police, y'all are genius for sure. They're underfunded already, they're way too busy to work. Order food and call the cops, see what reaches you first. Segregation ended, that's a lie in itself. That was a strategy to make us think they were trying to help. They knew that racism was hot if they designed it to sell. We buy up every single box and divide us ourselves.
They so fake woke. Facts don't care about feelings. They know they won't tell me what to believe in. They so fake woke. Same old, same songs. They so fake woke. Facts don't care about your feelings.
We use violence to get peace and wonder why it isn't working. That's like sleeping with a football team to try and be a virgin. Politicians are for sale and someone always makes the purchase. But you and I cannot afford it. Our democracy is worthless. If a man has mental illness, call him crazy, say it silently. When country's going crazy, we accept it as society. Get sick and take a pill. When the side effects get too high, you get addicted like these rappers dying fighting with sobriety. Censoring the facts turns our children into idiots. They claim it's for our safety. I'll tell you what it really is. Removing information that empowers all the citizens. The truth doesn't damage points of view that are legitimate. They're trying to change amen to amen and women. How do we let them make praying a microaggression? Instead of asking God for the strength to keep winning, we cheat to get ahead and then we ask him for forgiveness. Feminism used to be the most righteous of fights, but these days it feels like they secretly hate guys. I don't trust anyone who bleeds for a week and don't die. I'm just kidding, but everything else that I said is right.
They so fake woke. Facts don't care about feelings. They know they won't tell me what to believe in. They so fake woke. Same old, same songs. They so fake woke. Facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm not a big fan of rap, but did he ever nail that? Fantastic. And what the cool thing about it is, I guess the young kids are into this type of thing. He's gonna wake some of them up that aren't, and there's quite a few that are. But very good. Loved it. Love to see it. Yeah, so next on the board, my good friend Sean Taylor.
How's it going, man?
Good, buddy. You look like you're in a sauna there.
That's here, 2 seconds.
Eating. Sean's coming to us from his sauna.
There we go.
At least you have your clothes on still.
Yeah. How's it going?
Good, you?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
What camera are you using? Is it the camera on your laptop?
Oh, maybe. Here.
Give it a wipe. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, that's better.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, much better.
So
how are you?
I'm excellent. Heavy show, man. Heavy show.
Yeah, it's always pretty heavy with Salim. He brings so much knowledge and historical context to the conversation. It can't help but be heavy.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a treasure that we have him join us every week.
For sure. For sure.
I mean, he remembers more than, I forget what I had for breakfast, and this guy remembers what happened 40 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So you enjoying the show?
Yeah. The big show. Hey, the big show.
I guess I should start off with a caveat that this is my opinion. I represent no other parties.
Yeah.
I'm tired of getting my pee-pee slapped. So
yes.
Yeah.
Do you want? I think everyone knows what you do for a living.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I see that my name isn't on the headline, so that'll be good because the algorithms that look for me won't find this. So
yeah, right, right,
awesome.
yeah. I'll keep you out of the headline of this show, and maybe you can come under the wire. But there, I mean, there's always people watching these things that have nefarious plans, so you never know. But you're probably good.
That is true. That is true. But and I usually say that anyways, right? Because everything that I share is my experience and my thoughts, and I don't represent anyone.
Right. Absolutely, 100%.
So.
Yep. So you guys had a rally today, I guess, in Vernon.
Yeah. So out here in the Okanagan, every Saturday in Vernon, Kelowna, Penticton, I believe Kamloops as well. Yeah, we have rallies, and they used to do speakers the last couple of weeks. The last couple of times they haven't been having speakers. They've just been going out. They're getting a little heat from the RCs, so there is no organization. Everyone just shows up. There is no organizers, right? We're just standing around, and it's pretty remarkable. I guess before I forget, I should say, if anyone watching is from the interior of BC, we're having next Saturday, there's another big rally in Kelowna. I guess the last one had about 1,250 people, and they're doing a convoy again, this time from Kamloops all the way up. They're expecting about 100 cars. It should be a really good time. That last one looked amazing. I was sad that I missed that one. Yeah, but it looks like it'll be a good turnout. But anyways,
there was like 1,000 people or something there last time, hey?
Yeah, 1,250. That was
Wow.
And that was the media count, and they always downplay that. So yeah,
right.
It was a good turnout. Yeah,
Impressive.
I was sad that I missed it.
Impressive.
Yeah. So
Saskatchewan, hey, Saskatchewan, are you listening?
Yeah, we had a helicopter.
They even had a helicopter, for God's sake.
Yeah, they flew in from Salmon Arm. The guy that organized it in Salmon Arm, they had a helicopter come in and film the whole thing. And yeah,
helicopters are starting to become a theme. There was the Whistle Stop restaurant in Alberta that opened against the regulations, and a couple of their first customers were a couple of helicopters that flew in to get a nice meal at the Whistle Stop cafe, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
I tell you, with everything that's going on, helicopters are a good deal these days.
Yeah, I mean, if you can afford to invest in one of those, that would be smart.
Yeah.
So when you liquidate all of your assets to get out of the city and into the country, consider buying a helicopter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or just be really nice to people that own them.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, where are you at today? This is a heavy show.
Yeah, so I'll give a little context to that question. So me, as I said about Sean earlier, me and Sean talk quite a bit on the phone, and I think we're kind of therapy for each other in these crazy, crazy times. And I always say to Sean, from one day to the next, I'm in a different mood. It just depends what's happened. So that's why Sean asked that question now. And I mean, pretty balanced right now. We had a good day today with our rally, and we had some good feedback from a lot of people. So that's good. And that's why, today gives me a little bit of hope that more and more people are at least starting to question, what's going on with these restrictions, and the PCR test. People are starting to get it. So I think it's getting a little bit of steam. So yeah. So, at the moment, pretty good, but it doesn't take long before I read a couple of other articles and then realize, but that's the media. That's what they do. Right. And they're supposed to search out the people who are negative. They're supposed to search out the people who are sheep. So we think that most people are sheep. And in actual fact, I think most people, we talked about this today too, most people are going along to get along, Sean. Right? Like with the masks and all these other things. They want to get fired. They don't want any hassle going to get carton eggs at the grocery store, so it's like whatever. There's a lot of that, and those things don't hurt a person's life, right? In their mind, it's just a mask. I'm just going to put this on, get my carton eggs and my liter of milk, and I'm gone, whatever. Unfortunately, they don't understand the bigger picture yet. And once that bigger picture starts hitting them like it is, then they're going to start to open their eyes. And I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. And we've had talks where, because it's a fatigue, right? It's a fear fatigue. It's this constant fear porn pumped into you 24/7, everywhere you look, everywhere you go. And if you do put up any resistance, you're kicked in the teeth immediately and hard, right? And Salim touched on this a little bit with Maoist China, right? When they went through it, they called it the struggle period, right? Where you got to destroy the four olds, the old ideas, the old culture, the old habits, and the old customs, right? And anyone who voices an opinion against that is getting smacked really, really hard. Right? Yep. They either you look at all the people getting fired, speaking out against this is the real disconnect that I see. We talk about facts. I like facts, right? Even in the rap, you tell me the numbers, right? It's just okay, in 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Less people died in both Canada or more people died in Canada and in the United States than they did in 2020 with our massive global pandemic. And it's well, how does that make any sense? Well, it doesn't, right? Right. Because we're being lied to about things like that.
Oh, but they'll just spin that, Sean, and they'll say it's because everybody's been spraying everything down, wearing masks and social distancing, so nobody's getting sick.
Yeah.
So it's all, if it wasn't for that, numbers would be through the roof, and COVID numbers would be, it's so.
We've saved you.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
The warm embracing government, that is the only.
And how dare you criticize the people who are saving you? Like this disgusting display in Saskatchewan where we had 9 people go and protest outside Dr. Shahab's house because he's made decisions that are hurting people's lives, livelihoods, jobs, businesses. People are struggling, they're hurting. We're a voice for those people, and we broke no laws doing it, or they broke no laws doing it. But yet we get called the idiots by the premier, and then all of a sudden they have a parade, or they try to put together a convoy or whatever it was for Dr. Shahab, including Quick Dick McDick, who says we should all thank Dr. Shahab for destroying the economy, destroying our lives, destroying childhoods, all these other. We're supposed to be thankful. Just thank him for being the hardest working person in Saskatchewan. It's infuriating, Sean.
Yeah, it is. I'm kind of I'm trying to take the 10,000 foot, I'm not going to lie. Most days, and we've talked about this, right? Most days I've been grinning since the 6th, right? We're watching a movie right now and they're ramping up the retarded to levels that I think more people are going to wake up to. This has got me hopeful, right? So you look at it and you look the inconsistencies with what you see and the narrative that's being presented and all the falsehoods and basic, blatantly obvious psyops that are going on, right? And it's okay, there's a group out there that say that the Insurrection Act has been signed and the military is in control and Trump's coming back into power in March. And this is all just a show as they clean up, right? I saw a General Flynn video the other day that was saying that, no, there is no plan. This is what's going on. They won. And regardless, right? People need to wake up.
Right.
People need to wake up, especially in Canada. They're far more awake in the States, right? And whatever it takes.
Yeah, there's more of them that are awake for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever it takes to make that happen. We are in an information war right now. And when you watch the mainstream media and it's blatantly obvious lies.
Yep.
And all of a sudden people are really, really upset that what they're seeing, oh my God, it's over. We lost, right? It's like, well, it was fake 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
right? And you knew that.
Right.
So if it's fake now, why the mental duress all of a sudden, right?
Right.
And they think it's over and it's a loss of hope. And I just want to let people like, if there is something that's going on behind the scenes, and I'm hopeful that there is, if you knew about it, so would the enemy, right?
Right.
So this is a fog of war that we're dealing with, and that uncertainty causes a certain amount of stress in people, which is to be expected. But regardless, so if there isn't a plan and the globalists have taken over, then that's good too, because people are waking up to it. And you look at all this ridiculous stuff like Keystone XL, it's built, the cross-border section is built.
Right.
Yep. They just basically got to tie in a couple little things and turn it on, and they're canceling it. Line 5, I really hope they shut that one down, because that will just leave Ontario cold and in the dark. Right?
So we had
when they're scratching their heads. Wow, why don't we have more pipes? Well, we've been trying to build pipes, right? We live in the coldest country on the friggin' planet, and we can't build any energy infrastructure. The last 2 times that I've been up north, I do contracts in northern Alberta hospitals sometimes, and the last 2 times I was up there, they had to evacuate buildings because they did not have enough natural gas to heat the municipal buildings. Right?
Crazy.
On a country that's built on a lake of fossil fuels. Like, it's so ridiculous that this is where we're at in our country.
But like you said, and I said this on my show probably before the election. I think it was before the election. And I said, there's a bonus, there's a silver lining to Trump losing. And I said to my wife, I said, there's a part of me, it's not a big part of me, but there's a part of me that actually hope Trump loses, because Trump has basically been this bulwark, against what's coming. And he didn't take steps. He did a lot of good things, but he didn't take some steps that I think he should have. Maybe he couldn't have, because how deep the swamp is. But in the end, now it's time. Now the wake up will start, because we tried to wake people up for years, right? I have. Yeah. And there was no takers. There was a few, but in the grand scheme, there was no takers, because it was too crazy, too dark, too sinister, too conspiratorial, too crazy. So no, you're a conspiracy theorist. So, okay, well, here we are, and there is no bulwark anymore. It's gone. And so now's the time to pay attention when your economy is being destroyed, your livelihood's going to be destroyed. All of what we warned against is coming. They're telling us openly. They can't do it any more openly. Here's our opportunity to see, I guess, if the population can wake up. And then once they wake up, how are we going to respond? But at least now I think we're going to have an opportunity, because it's right here, it's in our face, and Biden is China, and Biden is globalism, and we've been living it for 5 years, and Sean, if it wasn't for COVID, we still wouldn't be waking anybody up. We had our energy industry destroyed. We have industry across the country being destroyed for years, and everyone's looking around with their thumb up their ass, wondering what's going on.
This isn't something that's affecting us. We're the sharp end of the stick on this. People need to always, like, Canada is known as a world leader in this shit. Right. So, so when I see these, people convulsing and bawling and, on YouTube, and, oh my God, Trump's like, oh, sorry, your freedom isn't going to be given to you on a silver platter by strangers. Oh, because that's always how it's happened.
You actually now have to get off your ass and do something to save this. All of your eggs being in Trump's basket.
Dust the cheesy dust off you. Get up off the couch, and you might actually have to fight for your freedom. But
that's why we've had this discussion before, and I was hopeful, and I always said, though, I always reverted back, or sort of sat back and went back to General Flynn. He was my guy. He was the guy that has credibility, and like you said, he just came out with another one saying, "Yeah, you know what? We lost. There's no real plan. We had a plan. Blah 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 blah." And so I take that for what it is. And so I had hope that, you know, and that there was a path and that Trump could take it. And I looked at it seriously, and we talked about it on my show. But at the end of the day, it's over. But this is what pisses me off about all of these, you know, conspiracy theories, quote unquote, or, you know, the Simon Parks and the Charlie Wards and these folks, you know, whatever. I don't know if there's a part of me that thinks they're a psyop, that they're the ones that just keep everybody sitting in front of their computer. And, you know, there's a great master plan that none of you are involved in. So just sit back and trust the plan. Well, that was hokey 2-3 years ago, to sit back and trust a plan from somebody that you don't know. But yet everybody seems to know what the plan is to keep everybody attracted to this idea that there's a plan. It's like, come on, you know?
And whatever, the Q has, been accused of being many things.
Yeah.
Regardless, it has woken a lot of people
Absolutely.
up. Right?
Absolutely.
And ultimately, it's beneficial. So whether it was a psyop to keep people to sit on their hands, like Operation Trust was run by the Bolsheviks as a counterintelligence operation, right? Which has been alleged. That may be the case, but they screwed up because people are awake now. And you look at the American military, that's been the stick that the globalists have beat the world with for the last 70 years. And you have this massive amount of combat veterans that are awake and in the civilian population there. And I don't think that they're going to take this lying down, right? And the impression I get when you look at the videos that come out, it's just like, this didn't strike me as a team that lost. So I'm still sticking to it, right? If it turns out in March that it's all nothing and that we're going down this slippery slope to communism, I'll have more to worry about than egg on my face. But right now, I'm enjoying the movie, and it's fun watching people squirm, right? Because the cognitive dissonance is going up so high that it's so insane, man. Like on my breaks, for fun, I flip between CBC and CNN.
And I don't know how you do it.
It is so batshit crazy. Like memes have become real. Like 6 months ago, Babylon Bee, they had a joke. There's a big pictures of burning cities and Black Lives Matter nominated for Nobel Peace Prize, right? And it's like, that's reality now.
Right. It's insane.
Look at this stuff and it's insane.
Dude, I admire the hell out of you simply that you can sit and watch CBC and CNN. Like, I can't do it. I maybe I need more humor in my attitude. I don't know, but I just can't do it. I can't watch it. I get enough
enemy, man, right? Yeah. Just being able to counter against that stuff. And coming from a psyops background, I look at things a little differently, right? And I want to see the stuff, but it's so ridiculous now that I think even people that buy the line are starting to wake up, and not all of them will. It's really remarkable, you know. Like
you look at, but you look at who sponsors CNN, who buys advertising on CNN. Most of the commercials, at least, you know, when I used to watch it, were big pharma and pharma companies selling their wares, and so you know they're going to get paid. CNN, because it's all, you know, especially in the States, you know, they have to keep some revenue coming in to keep the lights on. So when you look at the advertisers, you can see the correlation of who's on board, who's partnered with who. So there's, you know, because sometimes I wonder if it's the media in and of themselves promoting the narrative, or if it's the advertisers funding the media who's keeping the lights on and pushing the narrative, or at least pushing it through the media. In Canada, it's a little bit different. Of course, our media in Canada is funded by the government, or in actual reality, us. And so, you know, it's more direct rather than going through the big corporate world. They're going through the public world. Same outcome, same news, but just a little different angle.
See, it's so remarkable, and that's what I'm. what an amazing time to be alive. Like, to get
It
to
is.
watch this go down. Like,
It
it
is.
is insane right now. Like, historians are going to look back at this and marvel at what is going on right now. Like, because like you come back and you take the 10,000-foot view, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you've got a segment of the population, unfortunately in Canada, an extremely large segment of the population who believes that the warm embracing government will protect you from all, and they love you and they care for you, and they're protecting you from this devastating, massive global pandemic that's going to kill us all. And if you survive that, then the systemic racism will get you, but we'll take care of everything.
Yeah.
And then you go to the other side, right, that believe that the world is run by this, criminal, Luciferian, child-abusing cabal that is looking to depopulate the world and murder us and control us, right?
Right.
And you don't. That's a pretty big bridge to gap, right? That's
a long bridge.
You do in
There's a lot of water under that fucking bridge.
A weekend retreat, with the trust exercises. That's not going away anytime soon, right? So, what kind of disclosure are you going to have? What are you going to hit these people over the head with to wake them up? Because, dude, I'm out on the side of the road today. I'm standing there. It's cold. It's shitty out. I'm holding a sign, endorsing freedom, right? Fucking bold move there, right? Yeah, just like, hey, freedom's great. Kyle Delphing, he was the PPC candidate for North Okanagan and Shuswap. He's standing beside me waving a Canadian flag, and people, the response to that is to finger us and to call us fucking idiots.
Right.
Yep. Right? And I just smile, I laugh at it, right? It's like, okay, what is it that you know that I don't know?
Right.
Right? Why are we idiots? You only care about yourselves. Really? If I only cared about myself, I wouldn't be standing out here freezing my nuts off. Like, what do you mean I only care about myself? Right? Yeah. Like, it's just...
That's actually, it's interesting that you say that, because that's a message I want to get across today, because I was thinking to myself as I was driving home from the convoy, the amount of hate and abuse that we take on every Saturday in the media by the politicians. And what are we doing? We're fighting for freedom.
Yeah.
We're fighting for liberty, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble. We're fighting for business owners. We're fighting for kids. We named the convoy for kids because we're destroying kids' lives right now.
Yeah.
And we actually give a shit.
Yeah. This is operant conditioning. What are we teaching our children? Well, not how to read fucking facial expressions.
Right.
Right? We're teaching them that you cave on any adversity at all. You just shut her down and hide, and the government will take care of you, right? Yep. And you look at what's going on, and back to the the struggle period and the 4 it's the same program over and over and over again. And you get these young kids, and they get into university, and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is all brand new. This is the same shit that's been recycled several times, and it always ends up in the same way.
Yep.
Right? And I saw a lot of people talking about PPC and supply management. Supply management sounds boring. Supply management has killed more people than fucking artillery.
Right.
Okay? That's what they used for the Irish potato famine. That's what they used for the Holodomors in Ukraine and Russia. That's what they used in the Great Leap Forward in China. Right? It's boring shit that kills you. Right? And we look at it, federal politics is sexy, and that's what the media mostly focuses on. Right? Municipal governments are where the rubber meets the road.
Yep.
And they've been taken over by communists for the last 3 decades.
Oh, and that's our fault.
Zoning.
That's our fault, because we've never given a shit about it.
Exactly. Yep. Right? Yep. So when people dismiss supply management, it's like, and really, Max was doing it because, Martin and their economic outlook, for sure. It's a bullshit plan, but that's the thing. They weaponize it. And food has been, for the last 1,000 years, food has been the number one enemy, right?
Right.
And people don't recognize this. And when people yell at us on the side of the road, right, it's out of ignorance. Why?
100%.
Because they've been educated out of the capacity to question the narrative of what's going on. They're so afraid of being wrong, right?
Yep.
And they're incapable of asking that. And why? Right? You look at all this stuff. If you say anything, man, right? If you look at stuff that's easily provable, you just look, right? Jews control the media. You're an anti-Semite. Black Lives Matter is a neo-Marxist hate group. You're a white supremacist, right? The China virus. You're racist. South African variant.
But
That's okay.
But the
Now,
UK
you
and
call it a
South African variant.
You can call it a South African variant, but if you call it the China virus, oh shit, man, right?
Yep.
So you look at this, they change, they manipulate language, right? Just the word pandemic. The last time they did this in 2009 with the H1N1, which was one of the best influenza years we'd had in quite a while, right? Just before they kicked that one off, they went in and they changed the definition of pandemic. That has nothing to do with mortality. It's just cases.
Yeah, right.
And as long as we focus, because that's what people are waking up to. Like you said, the COVID virus is what's waking people up. And you look at this and we talk about facts and figures and morbidity and mortality rates and facts, because we're facts people. But these people that we're up against, they're feelings people.
Right.
Right? How does it make them feel? Right? And it's just like, I talk to people, like I got friends that are lefties, and like, fuck, I'm a freaking nurse, right? I'm a classic, yeah, whatever, right? I'm immersed in it all day, but I've got lots of friends, right? And I just want them to wake up to what's going on, because I find it fascinating. Like I'm just every day I wake up and I'm excited to see what's happened.
Yeah, it is fascinating. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
And I think, there's so, like, if you read a conspiracy, or if you read a history book and come up with an opinion on something, you're a conspiracy theorist, right? Because no one has a fucking clue what you're talking about.
But it's always out of ignorance, Sean. I mean, it's laziness and ignorance, and it's willful ignorance. Call it whatever you want. But this is my response to all of them now. When the default is you're a conspiracy theorist or you're a racist. You're okay with all that shows me, all that tells me is how ignorant you are. That's all. All you've said there is to expose yourself to your own ignorance. That's it. That's all you've done.
Yeah, I've got an opinion that was given to me, right? And I will not deviate from it, because it's been reinforced throughout my life, right? And you look at it, it's like, well, why does no one understand this, right? Like, more people were murdered by their own governments in the 20th century than in the history of our species at warfare, and we've engaged in that a lot, right? So that is an impressive number. Yeah. Right? If more people were murdered by their own governments with supply management, as boring as that sounds, right? More people were murdered by their own governments last century, and no one knows about it, and we never talk about it, right? Because its perpetrators control your education systems, control your media, and fortunately for us here in Canada, control our government, right? So the thing is, we've got this opportunity, because a lot of people haven't, on both sides, they haven't recognized a lot of them, like, you see people getting out of cities right now. The land rush in the Kootenays is insane. Like, I'm looking to buy a place, right, and it's nuts. And they don't know what's going on. Just like after the last election, after the last election, I didn't know what was going on, man. But I bought guns because I knew it wasn't good. I was just like, I don't know, something's up.
Something's up.
I never owned guns.
I got an itch to buy guns.
Right? Something's rotten in Denmark. Something's going on. So they haven't quite got there yet. Right? So I'm trying to use language that's gentle and to get people to be curious, because that's what's going to kill us, is this lack of curiosity or intellectual. laziness.
Just questioning things. Like,
Because, yeah.
like, you know, I just, a lot of times I just don't get it, Sean, but I probably project what I think onto everybody else, that they should probably think the same way. Not necessarily the same things, but at least think. And I'm continuously astounded by how dumb people choose to be, because people are generally, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you know, people can think, you know, and if they just took the time to do some thinking, they're going to get to the same place I am, because I'm here because of facts. This is what's happening. We know this is happening, and this is why it's happening, and this is why I feel the way I do, and this is why I'm defending freedom, because it's under attack. Everybody else, if they just took some time to think and do a little research outside the matrix, outside the mainstream media, they'd end up in the same place as we are, Sean. And maybe not because they're you know, they're thinking about it and it's facts, but maybe they're, because of those facts, their feelings are going to drag them over to where we are, right?
Yeah, it's Tim's that never underestimate human stupidity, and I constantly do that. Right? I'm an optimist, right? I want to think people are going to get it, but
yeah, I am too.
When you see this and you see how far it's come in just the last few weeks, right? Because it is full retard now. The stuff they're saying, the narrative, they're like, it is so batshit crazy. And if they're not waking up to this, I don't know what will wake them up.
But this is the thing. This is the thing, Sean. Sorry to cut you off, but this is the thing for me is, so I get discouraged, I get frustrated, and people have seen it. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, whatever, it is what it is. But the only reason I get like that is not because I think when shit hits the fan or gets worse than it is now, as I think it will be, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine, right? I have a plan.
Yeah.
I'm good, right?
Yeah.
But, so all of this frustration and all of this discouragement is because I want everybody else to have the same thing that we want, which is freedom and sovereignty and all these things. That's why. It's because I actually give a shit. Even though I'm all about the individual, I'm all about individual freedom, the only reason I'm doing this is for everybody else, because I mean, as a country, as a nation, it has to be about, you know, the majority, or at least a good portion of it.
You know, it's really quite remarkable, the society that was built and gifted to us, and its resilience in, despite, you know, decades of people trying to destroy it, it's still, it's still going on. Like the momentum that's carrying us forward right now, they're trying to destroy it with everything they can do, right? And it's just momentum. But I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to the fact that this is coming to an end, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's going to turn into,
right.
But like, we're printing money like crazy. We've done all these things. You know, you've got all these. You've pushed all these narratives that have pit one group against another, against another, against another. You got 4 waves of feminism now. The flat families fucking destroyed, right? You look at, you know, there's a comment earlier that is saying they asked the Russians what happened. And it's like, we forgot about God. And one thing that was really interesting during the campaign for me was, I've always been an anti-religion guy. I've always been an atheist.
Yeah.
And I saw what people replaced in its absence.
Right.
Right. And the zealotry that goes with that,
yeah.
You know, and, you know, completely dumbfounded at this point, right? Because here I am. I got into politics because I saw a threat from the Liberal government. And here I am. And I believe in God. And I'm looking to buy a farm to get ready for what's coming, by the looks of it, right?
Yeah, and so, you know, I share this similar experience, of course, but I was raised Catholic and I went to Catholic school, and I rebelled against organized religion. you know, for a number of reasons, not just the Catholic reason. But so I pulled out of religion, but I don't think I lost my spirituality. I've always believed in God. I don't know what it is. Anybody tells me that they do are part of the problem. I think, but I've noticed in the last couple of years, obviously this last year, that I'm getting more in touch with that part of me, because not only from a political sense, because let's face it, it was Christianity that established the Western world and Western civilization and individual freedom and all that stuff that we cherish, but also from just a strictly spiritual, that what a time to be alive. Me and you and Salim's and others that are fighting this fight are the tip of the spear for a reason. Sean, I think I look at my life, and I've been a rebel from the time I spoke words to this very day, and all of this has led me to this point. This is why I'm in the fight. This is why I take on the fight. This is why you're in the fight. This is why you're taking on the fight, because it's who you are. It's in your DNA, and all these other folks. Lots of the folks in the chat, they're in this fight because it's almost like it's a calling. Here it is. Here's what we've bred you for, and so we're in it. And somebody, people always say to me at these rallies, "Keep up the fight," and my only response is, I have no choice. Me and you could be sitting exchanging cigarettes in a gulag, Sean, and we'd be planning how we're going to win. Right? And maybe that's a true story.
Yeah.
Who knows? But
well, every time you don't answer your phone, I'm like, holy fuck, are they already on F? So I better get my go bag. Yeah. Well, and you would be a good guy to be in, having been a screw for quite a few years. You'd be a good guy to be in there.
To be in there with. That's right. I know the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy times, but again, what a time to be alive. What an opportunity to be part of something extremely special if we can turn this ship around. I mean, wow. And just to be in the fight and have the purpose that we have. There's been no greater purpose, at least since World War II, on a national level. There's been no greater purpose.
Yeah. And I gotta say, and to people watching, if you wear it on your sleeve, the people you will meet, because I just drop little hints, right? And it's just the conversations I have with absolute strangers, people I have never met before, and you give them the opportunity or the permission to share how they feel about this stuff, and it's incredible, right? Yeah. None of this how about the weather bullshit or the local sports ball team, right? Right. It's just you're talking about things that matter, and people are so repressed right now, and it's just they light up, and it's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. And that's one of the things, sometimes it's been a long fight, but so sometimes, a day, maybe even the morning of a protest, like, oh God, I got to go outside again. It's fucking cold and I'm tired. But you know what? As soon as I get there, it's like, I'm always so glad that I went.
Yeah. Because
I'm with like minds. I'm with other fighters and we're fighting for the same thing. We're all on the same team. And so I always feel better after. It's like, God, I'm so glad I went. And every weekend, same thing.
Yeah, it recharges your battery, right?
It does. Yeah, it does. For sure.
Because I'm always doing the math, right? Like, it's like, oh, fuck, have I gone too far? Because when I talk about this to my friends, I'm just like, I just wish you would look into this. Like, it is so amazing what is going on right now. And it's so interesting. It's better than any movie, right? It's just like, pay attention. It's really cool. And they're like, I don't want to.
Not only is it a good movie, but you're in it.
Yeah.
You're in the movie.
Yeah.
Right?
And when I talk about this stuff, I hear it in myself. I'm like, holy fuck, you sound like a manic crazy person. right? But it's so insane right now, and I'm excited about it because things are happening so fast. Like you look at the election, it seems like forever ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's happening so fast. The changes, the evolution of the narrative and what they're pushing and just the crackdown that's coming. And it's just like, okay, well, this is happening. Like it's going one way or the other. And I don't know which way yet. Right. I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm in the fight. For some reason, I keep getting this message that I chose to be here for this. We all did. We chose to be here for this time. I can't think of a higher honor or purpose for being in this fight.
Right.
We're fighting for freedom and good.
Yeah.
Like
right.
How many generations get that?
Well, exactly.
Right. We've had some generations that were fooled into thinking they were. Right.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable time, and there's no time I'd rather be alive. I gotta say, I wish I was 20, because after 17 years in the infantry, my knees sound like friggin' popcorn. And but a lot better doing this now than when we're in our 70s. Post-apocalyptic nightmares are hard on the geriatric population. So pitter patter, let's get at her.
Well, and that's it. And so, here we are. We got Biden and Trudeau both in cahoots with China. Things are going to come fast and furious, and they are. And people are going to wake up.
Yeah.
And, not a moment too soon, but they will, because it's inevitable. It's inevitable. And so somebody in the chat mentioned here a little bit earlier, well, what's your plan, Mark? Well, it depends. I mean, we define plan. I mean, do you think that we're going to resolve this politically? And if you do, then I think there's obviously no choice but the PPC on a federal level. But it's going to take some responsibility of folks at a local level, as we talked about, to get involved in local politics, start taking over these municipal governments and turning the tide there, because they're all right now overrun with globalists, all of them. So that's responsible. So is it going to be resolved that way, or are we just going to continue to stick our thumb up our ass and do nothing until the time comes where you have no choice now to do something, or end up in a gulag, or getting food stamps for survival, or the flag goes up and we get at her, because that's where we're headed. That's the path we're on. And that's not, and again, I always put a disclaimer on that comment. I'm not encouraging that. I'm just saying that's the reality. This is the path we're on. I still think there's enough freedom lovers in this country, whether they know it or not, that will fight for freedom versus communist, fascist, globalist tyranny.
Yeah. So I see Kim saying we're talking in circles. Talk. What would you like to see happen, Kim?
Yeah. Kim says define the plan. Well, I don't know what else you want. I just told you. Yeah. Politically, the PPC is the only option. Get off your ass and run municipally. There's a plan. Do it. Get off your ass. Go run for city council wherever you live. Go do that, Kim. Get off your ass. Stop sitting on a computer bitching at people who are trying to do something. Get off your ass and go run. How about that? That's a plan. Now, if you don't think it's going to be resolved politically, then go buy a chunk of land out in the woods, build a house, and put a fence around it with some other people. That's a plan. That's what I'm considering. But you're an individual, Kim, so start taking responsibility for what you got to do. Don't ask me to give you your plan.
Yeah. It's yeah, I don't have a plan, man. It's hard to make plans in these days, right? Like everyone's saying buy gold and silver, right? I chose on brass and lead. I think this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Mm.
Even if what it looks like might be happening in the States happens, people are so friggin' asleep in this country. I don't know how much of an effect it will have here. I was talking about with Kyle that today, because I was always hopeful. I'm like, you know, if what they're saying is true, and we see a massive shift of power in March, and then there's going to be this massive disclosure. Like I was always saying that, you know, the Overton window in this country will move as well because of the cultural pollution. Like we're so close and tied to the States that we could have a big awakening here. And when people realize that the PPC is the only voice against the globalists, we're the only nationalist party.
Yeah.
And that our nation is in danger, and people wake up to that threat, we could form a majority government. Right. It's happened in other places, right? But with things as ridiculous as they are right now, and people still, you know, fingering me and calling me an idiot on the side of the road because I'm waving a Canadian flag, it gives me doubt about.
But I think, Sean, but I think those people are the minority. They're the loud minority. They're the minority, and we talked about this today earlier. You know, at our protests, we get those drive-bys, the fingers, the chucking drinks at us, whatever. They're whatever. They just do what you do. We just say, yeah, we love you too, whatever, you know. But they're the minority. The majority are honks and thumbs up, and the only thing that pisses me off, it actually pisses me off more than the haters, is why aren't you here? If you're honking and driving by and giving thumbs up, why don't you get out of your truck and join us for 10 minutes? Say hello, be part of this. Now, I mean, I know people have reasons and they have excuses and they don't want to get fired and they don't want this, that. I get it, but it's still frustrating more than the haters frustrate me. The haters, it's like water off a duck's back. I could care less. You're an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the next round, because I got to tell you, it's going to look a hell of a lot different than the first round did, right? I spent most of my energy. I'm not a public speaker. I've never done anything like that before, right? And I get on stage with all these politicians, and I spent most of my energy trying not to call anyone a retard or say fuck, right? Like that's where most of my energy went, and I fumbled my way. But it was, you know, I got better as it went along. Yeah. But I can tell you, I played the game. I wanted to be likable, right? I want to be polite, because we're polite people. Right. And you just, the time for being polite is over.
It is.
Right? It is. They're calling us every name in the book because they see us as a threat, ultimately. Right? So that's hopeful. Like you look at
absolutely
an old Air Force saying, right? Like you always take the most flack when you're over the target.
Exactly.
And when they're calling us white supremacists, and like, who is that? I forget her name. This is that cute little brown girl. She ran for us in Ontario. I think she was Ethiopian or something. And they, fuck off, Nazi bitch. I'm like, what? Like, it doesn't even make sense, right? Like it's just.
But it doesn't have to, right? Because they live in this dream world. They live in this world of perception, and then they build this perception. It's like Press Progress doing a hit piece on me 3 weeks ago, out of the blue. Like out of the blue, which tells me, hey, if Press Progress is doing a hit piece on me, as you said, I'm over the target. That I'm doing something absolutely 100% right. Please do more, because that means what I'm doing is right. World Economic Forum blocks me on Twitter, which tells me, okay, good. Klaus is watching, and doesn't like me sharing their shit and interpreting it. Good. More, please. I want more. Give me more. Give me more hit pieces, right? Because that tells us what we're doing is right.
Well, and that's the thing, right? And just standing your ground, not putting up with that, right? Like just the anti-white talk, right? And just the slandering is like, you know what? I'm not gonna put up with this shit anymore. You can't just call me a racist or a white supremacist when I speak truth. Right. Because you don't like the narrative. Like that, and that's the general label, right? You don't have to do anything even with race. Yeah. Right? They're calling the organizer in Penticton for the anti-lockdown protests racist. Like we had people yelling at us, calling us white supremacists, all the cars. Like, okay, what are you talking about? Like we're protesting the lockdowns.
Right.
It just their their grip on reality is tenuous at best, right? And it's just, it doesn't seem to matter. You just throw enough mud, but they know they own the mud throwing apparatus in this country.
I want to show you an example. So this person has actually trolled me on Twitter before.
Who's that?
I'll show you.
Okay.
But in this case, I trolled her. And this is the narrative that we have to deal with. So this Taylor McNally character, I mean, did we really expect anything different from Calgary police? Systemic racism. That is it, folks. The tea is boiling this morning, blah, blah, blah. But let's have a look at what she's... So today I received an email of rejection for my application regarding the Calgary Anti-Racism Committee with the Calgary Police Service. It didn't bother me, as I didn't expect to be chosen to begin with. However, to find white folks being accepting into these positions has me floored. I honestly don't know how I'm even capable of feeling shocked anymore, because it's one blow after the next. If you're a white person who has been accepted and call yourself an ally, I hope to see you pass on the position to allow Black and Indigenous people to sit at the table. The fact white people felt confident enough to even apply in the first place shows you all have learned nothing. I don't care how many books you've read, how long you've gone to school for, or how much work you think you've put in. You know who knows best about racism and what radicalized people need. Radicalized people, period. So that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. They
So,
know not what
you know
they
what?
asked for.
The hell with you. I had to retweet it and I call it what it is. I mean, that's racism. Can you imagine, Sean, if I said those words in reverse?
Yeah.
Just imagine. Man, I'd be tarred, feathered, probably hung at City Square.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where we're at. This is where we're at, right? But I'm curious on how far it's going to have to go to wake people up, and if people will wake up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because people talk about this like it's end of days and all that stuff, and it's like, well, yeah, there's been situations where, you know, good people stood up before. You know,
Right.
In Russia, when the Bolsheviks came, they had the White Russian Army. We don't even have that here, right? And people were a lot better educated then.
Yeah, but the difference there is you had a violent revolution, and then you had a standing army of some description in the whites defending. So in this case, of course, it's not a necessarily violent revolution. It's been in the works for a very long time. It's this whole drip incremental thing, which actually probably makes it more dangerous because it's done.
It was a subversion by foreign entities like this is, right?
Right.
And I got to tell you, we've been cooking a lot longer than Russia did.
Yeah, also,
this has been,
also.
and that's the daunting task, to try to wake people up to the scope of what's going on and how things all work in conjunction, right? Yeah. And you go back to, French Revolution, formation of the Bank of England, right? The Corporation of the City of London. It's been the nest for 400 years. Yeah. And it's just the same thing over and over and over again, right? And if you look at all these coincidences, right? You look at the Chinese Opium Wars, the way that was conducted against them, and then you look at the Opium War that's been going on here, where we've got, oxycodone and OxyContin. That's this miracle drug. It's like, we've been dealing with opiates for millennia. We know they're addictive, right?
Right.
And you see this massive systemic push to get everyone hooked on that, and then as soon as that came crashing down, we just happened to be in Afghanistan, which produced zero poppy under the Taliban and now produces 92% of the world's heroin.
Right.
Like, it's just like there's so many facets to this
Well,
thing.
and then the Chinese picked up on fentanyl and they decided to flood the Western
Oh
world.
yeah, you don't even need to grow it anymore. We'll just make it in labs and stick sea cans over. It's cheap, it's easy, right?
Yeah. And then let's create the situation where more and more people are desperate and destitute, and we'll put them on fentanyl, we'll put them on these drugs, and that'll further degrade this culture, this society.
Yeah. And you look at and the lockdowns, right? You cancel Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous meetings, extend the hours of service for your local liquor stores. So to take away all the support, the amount of relapse and overdose that we've seen in the hospitals is insane.
Right.
Like when the lockdowns first happened, the amount of people that were coming in that had just they were in recovery. They had their support system stripped away from them.
Yeah.
It is it's insane. And people thinking, oh, this is good. And every time you turn on the news, right, you got these groups of talking heads that are brought in by CBC and CNN and all the it's like we need to lobby the government to do more. These lockdowns have to be harder, they have to be stricter, right?
Yeah.
I've got little old ladies coming in and they're wearing 2 masks, right? It's just like, holy crap, how can you breathe?
Well, and I feel sorry for the older folks because I refer to my mom a lot of times on here, and I love her to death. She's my mom. She's the kindest woman I've known ever. But she's stuck in her apartment. She's stuck in her condo, not because anyone's standing at the door locking her in. They've made her so fearful that that's what she has to do. She'll just wait for the vaccine in the last years of her life that she's supposed to be enjoying her grandkids and everything else. It's just and who am I then to red pill her or worse, black pill her? Like, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that in these last few years that she has? You know what? If you can, whatever. It's just sad. You're between a rock and a hard place because you see what's happening and the damage it's doing. But at the same time, if you attempt the red pillar, you just probably ostracize yourself from them, and so it's so shitty to watch.
It is, and it's easy to suck on the black pill because it looks overwhelming, right?
Yeah,
like we're up against it.
Yeah.
And watching this and being gaslit by the world all day, every day, wherever you go.
Right.
It's just, it's demoralizing.
Well, and let's be honest. Is there a part of me, I should say, that would like to see the flag go up and let's get it on and let's get at this and take back our country by all means necessary? Sure. But we're not even close to that. Are you kidding me? So all these people that sometimes they come in the chat and they're sort of promoting this idea of revolution. Well, number one, you've never been in one.
No.
Number two, you have no idea what that means and the blood that runs in the streets. You have no idea how shitty that is. I've talked to people who've lived through it, who fought in it in Serbia and other places. They don't want to see that again. This is what we're trying to avoid. But if you're calling for that kind of violent revolution, you're a moron, because there's not enough people to even dream about that at this point.
Revolutions murder revolutionaries. That's
right.
That's what revolutions do, right?
Right.
And it's they don't know what they ask for, right?
No, they don't. So go back to Kim saying, what's your plan? Well, my plan isn't to promote a violent revolution. I'll tell you that much, because it won't work. It just won't work. And so the plan is, okay, well, I'm going to continue to try to wake people up to the reality of things. At the same time, and we've talked about this, Sean, I have to start looking and making plans on a local individual level of what's best for me and my wife and my kids, and try to prepare for the worst. I hope for the best, but on an individual basis and start, conceptualizing what it is I'm going to need to do when what I think is coming is coming. And so I don't know if that'll even be successful. It depends how successful they are. So, I mean, there's so many variables.
I tell you, like 20 years ago, I signed up for unlimited liability. And I asked myself, like, when I see this, because I see people jumping ship, right? Like you had some friends take off to Mexico, and I've talked with some people and they're like, fuck this, I'm getting out. I'm going to a place where I can grow food in my yard year round and just leaving, right?
Yep.
Because I'm too old. I don't want to be involved in this or whatever, right? And it's just like, so I asked myself, like, what's changed in the last 20 years? Well, my level of understanding has definitely increased. But as far as my love for my country and what I'm willing to do for it, absolutely nothing.
Right.
Has changed. And I think we've been trying to wake people up to what's going on for the last few years. And I will continue that as long as I see that as the best option. And if this evolves into something more, I'll be there. I hope we wake people up. I hope we see political change, right?
Yeah.
And there's not everyone shares that opinion. Like when I sat down with the 3%er guys, right?
Yeah.
We pretty much had the same outlook on things.
Yeah.
Right. They were practicing skill sets because they saw something coming down the pipe. And I saw the same thing. I'm just trying to solve it politically because I've already got those skill sets.
Right.
So, yeah, I hope we can do this quietly. I hope there's some crazy stuff happens in the States here in March and it wakes the world up and we make some positive change, because regardless of whether that happens or not, change is coming.
Oh,
right?
100%.
This paradigm that we're in, like this has limped along a few times. Like 2008, it should have gone down, and it didn't. Yeah. We printed a shit ton of money and propped things up and kept it going. London almost blew. I think it was 2017 with palladium. And it all almost came down on a house of cards. You look at this stuff, like, and this is what's so amazing. You look at this stuff that's going on, like with Wall Street bets, and the naked shorting, and you've got all these hedge funds that are taking advantage of this lockdown situation and just going hardcore naked shorts. Like they shorted 140% of the float on a brick and mortar store during the lockdown, right? And these guys were like, "No, fuck you," right? And they lost them a lot of money. But when you see people starting to pull up the threads of silver, like that's something that could unravel the world, right? Like there is so much fraud and like silver derivatives and gold metals, period, right? Commodities have been so undervalued for so long. While we lock everyone out of work and print trillions of dollars around the world, completely devaluing our currencies, but still keep these commodities. When that snaps back, that could blow up the world economy, right? Yeah. So you look at all these things. We're coming to the end of this phase, and what this turns into, if the majority of us stay asleep, is going to be not a very nice thing.
Right.
No,
absolutely. And so, Mike Livingston just made a comment there that was interesting. He says it's a good time to become a minimalist. Well, that time is coming whether you want it or not. Whether we win or lose, that time is coming. Based on what you were just talking about. If the globalists win, then you're stuck in a pod in a city somewhere where you own nothing and you'll be happy. Or we win and this system is completely upended and we start from scratch. And starting from scratch is not the life that we've been used to for the last 50, 60, 70 years. And so, but just imagine for a second, like let's do a thought experiment here. Let's just say, Sean, that me and you and a lot of others are successful in educating the masses. Getting the masses to wake up, not only by our education, but through the consequences of all this shit. And we managed to get, a good portion of the population awake. Well, and we're still in a position where we can vote our way out of this. The default is the PPC. Nobody can tell me any different.
Yeah.
Not because of the leader of the PPC, but because of what the PPC is made of, because of who belongs to that party and what we cherish, what we represent. So let's say we wake them up and we take power. Just imagine what that would do to turn this boat around. I mean, immediately we pull out of the sustainable development agenda. That flips every single municipality in this country on their ear because they automatically don't have support from a federal government that's feeding this horse shit.
I got to. Oh, dude!
The amount of change that would happen drastically and dramatically just with that would be monumental as far as history is concerned. And so, I mean, people need to understand what it is the PPC represents, and what it's going to mean if the PPC ever got power. A complete shift to what we've been through for the last 40 years. Completely 180 degrees back to being about Canada. Now, does that mean that comes without consequence? Of course not. Of course, there'll be consequence. But it's consequences that are necessary in dealing with what's been done to this point. And so this is part of what gives me hope. And Kim's still talking about, we just want to talk. Well, you know what? The only way we're going to solve this problem is by talking and educating enough people throughout this country to understand what the hell is going on, why it's going on, and the only people that represent any change is the people who are part of the PPC. That's it.
She also said that in a nutshell, we're fighting the last war, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of merit to that statement, right?
Yep.
This is something new, and there's a lot of people in the establishment that haven't recognized that yet, right? And they think this is just another typical cycle, and this is not, right? There's an awakening, and when you look at it, it's so remarkable. Like, we're capable of so much better, much better.
Imagine kicking China the hell out, Sean, and starting to own our resources again, and actually, developing our own resources and building a refinery here and there to refine our own product and actually getting our product to Tidewater. I mean, we sit on an absolute gold mine of resources, not just oil and gas, but I mean, potash, uranium, you name it, we got it. Let's own it. Let's take it back. Let's own the world. Yeah. I mean, and other countries would follow, man. Other countries would say, holy shit, Canada's leading again. Let's follow their lead. Let's do what's best for us. And we'll actually trade with them. We'll trade with all of these other countries that have the same ideas and have ditched globalist agenda. Imagine the potential. Imagine the prosperity that we would all have. Like, holy shit, what are we doing?
Yeah. Do you look at, so what we've done this year, right? We printed $500 billion, right? We could have had a brand new Army, Navy, Air Force, right? Rebuilt most of the infrastructure in the country, put a deep water port in Churchill, a new Trans-Canada across the north to open up the north, right? Started a space program, built a friggin' Stellarator to rival ITER in France.
Yep.
Right. And been energy leaders coming off of fossil fuels and been a global leader for the next century.
Yep. And
what did we do? We gave it away to people on welfare so they could buy shit they don't need off of Amazon and Chinese fentanyl to overdose on. Right? Like, it's just it's so ridiculous. Right. We're capable of so much more. But it's the central banks, man. It has been for the last 400 years. You look what Germany did in 3 years from getting out from underneath their heels, right?
Yeah.
And it took the rest of the world combined to bring them back into tow. You just you get that oppression away from people financially, right? And China Schmina, right? Like, we lead the way, we take care of business here.
Yep.
This awakening is going on everywhere.
It is. Right? It is.
If we are winning, they're winning.
Yep.
That would be liberating 1.4 billion Chinese people from the oppression that they're under.
Exactly.
Dude.
Exactly.
Chinese, and that's the thing, that the narrative that they push, because we're all racist, right?
Yeah.
I like Chinese people. I got no problem with Chinese people, right? I'd like to get this.
There's a lot of Chinese people joining There's a lot of Chinese people joining the movement because they understand they left that place because of the oppression of their government.
They know what we're up against.
They do.
Right?
They do.
Yeah.
Anybody coming from these countries, the Eastern Bloc countries, China, and they came here because they ran away from tyranny, totalitarianism, which is exactly what globalism is. It's the scariest thing probably in human history. A global entity dictating to all countries what policy there is. It's insane.
Dude, you look at, they kill Kennedy, right? Johnson comes in, war on poverty, great society, destroys lower socioeconomic groups and the black families with the welfare state, right? They pick a fight between the Bank of Canada and Diefenbaker, our last nationalist prime minister, as far as I can determine. And of course, the media sides with the banks, right? Because they're owned by the same crew. And we get Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And those two start the wholesale of North America. And it's been a downhill slide since. And this great nation that was built for us and given to us by our ancestors, we've been coasting on the momentum and the stability that they gifted to us. Yeah. Right. And you look at these things back, like the NWAPA. Did you look at that NWAPA stuff I was telling you about? With the North American Water, I forget what it stands for. Anyways, it was like massive hydro projects up in the Yukon, northern British Columbia, and Alaska, building massive reservoirs to irrigate Canada, United States, Mexico, everywhere, right? There's enough rainfall in this small period, this small portion up there,
right,
that we could have, for agriculture, for everything. It would just be amazing. And they had this all laid out in the 60s, and it was a go. And these guys, they just shut it all down. And you look at the troubles that we're having and our infrastructure, that there's been no reinvestment into our country. It's been all the money's all been shipped off overseas to all these frigging criminals, right? Like, it's theft.
Yep.
Canada belongs to Canadians.
Yes.
Right? And we've erased our borders. We're bringing in tens of thousands of people a month and printing money as fast as we can. It's like, that doesn't sound like it's being done by someone that has our best interest in mind. Right? Like, you don't have to be a friggin' economist to think, okay, the majority of the country is unemployed and locked down.
Right.
Let's bring in tens of thousands of migrants every month and print money until
and take advice from the IMF, who says just spend more. Yeah.
You know, and look, and like you said earlier, like there was a PPC EDA meeting here in Kelowna Lake Country, or for the Kelowna Lake Country riding, right? And we met downtown and looking around, it's like, this is illegal right now. Right? We got 6 people in a room talking, right? And this is illegal. This is against the law.
I'm putting together meetings right now. I'm scheduling them, clandestine meetings, Sean. I live in Canada, but I have to put together clandestine meetings where we don't disclose the location or who's hosting or where, anything. I have to do it clandestine.
Yeah.
That's what we're living in.
Yeah.
It's insane. And they'll probably track me. They'll probably follow me. Who knows? But
like I said, send up a flare.
Yeah.
There's going to be enough time between F and T's that I'll be able to get the hell out of here. Oh,
but
man.
you know what? But those things need to happen, and I'm glad they are happening. And it's grassroots. It's on the ground. It's part of the equation. And I hope more people do it. Like, it has to be a community. It has to be community level. You have to do it grassroots, and you got to get involved. The social media is great, but it has its limits, and we have to get outside this and into the face to face, man. Talking to people, making contacts.
I'm not anti-mask. I'm pro-face.
Yeah, right. Exactly, right. Yeah. It's
remarkable.
Candy says, "What are you smoking, Grizz?" I love this combo. Thanks, guys. I'm just smoking on my vape as per normal. Nobody's complained about it today. I usually get a complaint or two that I'm smoking or vaping on camera, but
Hey, Jack, how you doing?
Yeah, Tim says, "Leave my phone at home." Well, I'm actually looking into getting a flip phone. Without all this smart stuff. Anything smart is bad these days. Smart phone, smart fridge, smart meter, smart car, smart house, smart neighborhood, smart cities, fucking it's all horseshit. Anything with a smart before it is not smart. Yeah. Well, Sean, I think we covered a lot of ground tonight, and it was well overdue. I love having you on the show because the conversation always flows quite well. And
thanks, man. It's good being here. It's I've gotten a little bit of trouble for doing stuff like this, but fuck them if they can't take a joke.
Hey,
right?
and freedom is contagious, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you have to stand up. You have to stand up to it.
I have no choice.
Stand up, you'll die on your knees.
Yep, 100%.
And that's not hyperbole, right? You look at what's going on right now, and you got to stand up, because if you're not, you're complicit.
We're planning clandestine meetings. We're getting arrested for assembling peacefully. We're getting arrested returning to your country. They're detaining you in a internment camp they call a hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, right? Like,
don't worry, the rectal swabs will make everything better.
Well, those are the things. See, those are the things that I love to share, because I mean, there's nobody in their right mind that says, "Hey, that's a good idea." Where do I line up for that? Although maybe there are people like that.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, and this is funny, right? Because when I gotta watch for that. Okay. When I work in some places as opposed to others, the experience is different, right? And how do I even say?
Hey, okay, I worked in a place where anal swabs would have been a great day.
Yeah. So I found this research article. It was peer reviewed even, right? And it was talking about how English, because of our consonants, ch and sh and all that stuff, that it's a much more effective COVID spreader than other languages. And I'm like, you heard German? Like, what? Yeah, and Arabic, like with a right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but this was the thing, that English is much worse for spreading COVID, right? And I'm like, this is so ridiculous. And I brought it to work to show us, right? And they're like, oh yeah, that seems about right? Like, as soon as it's in a science paper, right? And we're being lied to in so many areas, and it's so blatant now that I'm hopeful, right? Yeah. I'm hopeful that people are going to wake up. Yeah. Like that they've been, I'm sure you saw it, that little kid that was wrecked in the sledding accident in 2018.
Yeah.
And they've been using that picture with him on a ventilator to say how bad COVID is, right? And you look at the Lancet, the Bible for us in medical research, right? And they did that big, just fraudulent piece on hydroxychloroquine and then quietly retracted it.
Right.
Right. Like, it's just all your most trusted sources of information are telling bold-faced, blatant lies to push, to push this narrative. And it's becoming so blatantly obvious that I'm hoping more people are going to wake up. And
well, it's becoming so obvious, and I think you made this point. It's becoming so obvious. It's almost as though the white hats are winning and doing it on purpose. It's just so stupid and so like anal swabs, for example, right? Like, it's so onion that you can't help but wake people up to everything that's going on.
Yeah, glory holes and masks during sex. Like, it's just right. Like, it wouldn't even pass muster at the Onion or the Babylon Bee. It's so ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah. Like people on the Onion were like, "Oh, that's too stupid.
That's too stupid."
Right? It was like, let's run with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. But
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, man. And if the ridiculousness doesn't wake people up, the oppression will.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? 100%. Carry on. Like, we all know. Well, not all of us, but those of us that read, right? Like, the people that are aware to what's going on, and I've read this play before. This always goes to the same place.
Yeah.
Right. So once we head there, that's what it will take. Like, I think this is going to get worse before it gets better.
Oh yeah, it will. Well, it has, because it's already reached insane levels. Yeah. But
it's definitely gotten weird.
Yeah.
But really, things aren't bad yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not like they could be.
People talk, oh my God, it's like, dude, they drag people out in the front yards and shoot them. Like, that's where this goes.
Right.
That's where this has always gone. We've seen this play hundreds of times, and that's always where this goes. And people haven't made that connection yet.
But it's on not on a Russian level or a German level or a Venezuelan level. It's on a global level. But the reverse to that is also true. It's on a global level. And generally humans like freedom, and generally humans will respond. It's just a matter of when. So
and all this infrastructure that they've built to do this to us.
Yeah.
We're jujitsuing the hell out of it, right?
Yeah.
Like Facebook, YouTube, right?
Yeah.
The internet, they're trying desperately to control the internet, right? I saw people in the chat earlier talking about Robert Sepper, right? And he's amazing, and it isn't just him, but you've got this guys like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and stuff like that, who've been heretics and raging against the machine for the last 4 decades.
Yeah.
And because of the internet, you've got this entire cohort of archaeologists and anthropologists that are coming up, and they're turning the narrative on its head, right? Yeah. People are coming to the realization that they've been lied to about absolutely everything, right? The science is lying to them. Their history books are lying to them, right? And it's amazing to watch. Like I said, man, I'm enjoying the hell out of this. I have down days like everyone, right? Because it's such a menial grind, and it just it hurts the frontal lobe, right? You'll just see this ridiculousness. It's like, Christ, enough already, right? Like, can't you guys see that? And I'm treated like an asshole when I try to point it out to people. But whatever. Yeah, you've been calling me names for a long time. I've gotten used to it, right?
Exactly.
So it's good deal, man.
All right. Well, I've been at it for 3 hours and 19 minutes. So that means me and you have been at it for an hour and a half. So nice work.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Good show tonight.
We should do this again more often.
We will, most definitely, my friend. You should be a regular. Maybe you should be a regular after Salim, but your shift work, so it's hard to do that all the time. But
yeah, my schedule's all screwed up. But I was hoping he was going to stick around. I wanted to tangle with him again. Like going in there with Mike Tyson, right? Yeah, yeah. He didn't like my views on Churchill there last time.
Yeah.
Yeah. He got a little, yeah. He's moved a fair amount too, eh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
It's
Yeah.
fun to watch.
Yeah. All right, my friend.
All right.
You
Good
have a
night
good night.
to all the fellow domestic terrorists out there.
Yes.
And
Right.
until we meet again.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Later, dude.
Talk to you later. All right. And that's a wrap. Sean Taylor. Solid patriot right there. And earlier, Salim Mansur. So it was a good show, good conversation, and hopefully beneficial to everyone who was watching. And thanks for being part of it. Thanks for putting in your comments and giving us things to talk about. And Kim, no hard feelings if you're still in the chat. Oh yeah, there you are. But I get a little bit wild sometimes, but it is what it is. Nature of the beast. But I actually don't mind being challenged. I like being challenged. But just sometimes, because I've heard that from so many people, and so hopefully you didn't take it personally. Anyway, thanks guys. Love each and every one of you. Be solid, Patriots. We will win. And ciao for now. And the new system is working well. A couple of little bugs I got to work out, but yeah, no problem playing videos or all that good stuff. So Salim's connection wasn't great tonight, but oh well, it's what it is. All right. Anyways, guys. Ciao for now. And remember, globalism bad, nationalism good.